You wanted to make?
I just want to ask Jamie something, just because we were having this discussion. Like,
Well,
do Australian people use the N-word?
No. Well, yes, but not good ones.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
That's kind of what I said.
we had a relationship with it where we didn't really understand how important it was.
Right.
So it was very common over here because we didn't really understand its context.
Like it was just slang.
Nowadays, it's a
okay.
huge change.
Interesting.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
That has nothing to do with our topic, just as a heads up for everyone flooding in, but interesting question.
Hello.
Hello, yeah, good evening, everybody.
Hola.
You have 2 digits of channel points now, Boogman? That's insane.
2 digits?
How'd you get that?
Massive.
Be in stream for 1 second?
Literally laughing. To the
I think you default with it.
I think you default to 300.
Yeah, I was like, actually, don't you get more from that when you follow?
Yeah.
I think it's more difficult to have 2 digits than 3 digits.
You're right. Oh, divisible by 2. Oh, okay.
So even.
Yeah, even about, okay.
Or odd with remainders, but.
What are you up to tonight, Bookman, Sidorak, Adby? Oh, I've been playing so much Warframe again.
Bro, everybody's talking about it again. I don't know why. Like, Ace is highly addicted to it, and he's been playing
Ace
it
is playing Warframe?
Oh, not Warframe, sorry. I don't know why I heard Warframe is the same as Cyberpunk. That's not even close to the same thing.
What? Literally
what?
Dude, my brain has a stroke. I don't know how to explain it there.
Reboot, dude.
I need to.
Eating some wheat things? Do you mean, okay, wheat thins. Okay, good.
You mean bread? Wheat?
I like wheat things because it allows the interpretation up to us. So you just guess.
Got him. Oh, it didn't work for me either. Got me. One of you type exclamation point mod abuse if you're a mod.
Chunk will do it. There he goes.
Yeah, I got you.
Nice.
Wait, can you not use it, Debbie? Like, because you're not technically a moderator?
I think it's because I responded to someone on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. It's because I responded to somebody.
Dude, I still can't get Nightbot to freaking work, dude.
Hey, Ace.
What's your language?
Bro, Ace, Chunk was just telling us about how you're addicted to Warframe.
What's up?
I was just telling Ace that you were just telling us about how Ace is addicted to Warframe.
Oh, he did say that.
Yeah, he did say that.
His favorite game, actually, ever.
Didn't know you played. Would love to have you play with me, Ace.
Cyberpunk is still terrible, by the way.
Oh, is it still bad? I haven't
played
it.
That's all.
I've heard it's getting better. Or I've heard it got better.
You. Oh my god, Aravand. I'm
Like-
so glad you said that.
Regardless of the bug fixes, regardless of everything, even if the game worked perfectly, it's still boring.
Yep.
Sheesh.
And that's
Grinding for the sake of grinding is...
it's so irritating. And it's like, this is someone who loves the grind, who loves any game with a gun in it. It's just boring. Completely just avoiding the story.
You run the same
itself.
maps so you can run the same maps faster.
Yeah, it's just
I'm sorry.
Interesting.
Which game
Of
are you
things
talking
that are
We're
about?
making enemies right now, I'm sure.
Cyberpunk, not
But-
Warframe. Warframe's awesome.
Yeah, Jamie, which are you talking about Cyberpunk?
Oh, wait, I'm talking about Warframe.
That's why I was confused by the maps thing. I was like, wait.
Damn it.
There's only one map.
Yeah, I'm the only one here.
Yeah, no, you're the only one. Warframe's
I used
great.
to play... Yeah, I used to play the hell out of Warframe. Then one day something changed my brain, and I was like, "The fuck am I doing this? I have no idea why I'm doing this." I just
like
spent
'cause
like
it's turned your
50
brain off.
hours grinding a Warframe, so I could play the map that I just grinded for 50 hours a little bit faster.
To be fair, there's a lot more to do now, I imagine, unless you played like 2 years ago.
Nah, it was longer than that, but
Yeah, there's a lot going on now in Warframe. I mean, there's like 12 different games in that game. I'm pretty sure there's one quest that I think should have just been a single player game.
For every online MMO, I bet I could find I bet I could find that exact same comment. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
Like, there's a lot going on now. It's changed heaps. I don't know. Like, the core gameplay loop has to be pretty much the same.
I would say the core gameplay loop is the same. I think the worst part about Warframe is just guidance about knowing what to do and where to go next. Past a certain point, it doesn't guide you anymore, and you have to figure it out. It's a wiki game like a RuneScape.
I feel like you
very
exclusively
quickly
play
grab a
wiki
drink,
games.
all right?
Sure.
All right.
And we'll swap over to cameras once you're back.
What do you feel about that, Debbie? Like, what do you feel about that comment? Because I feel like it's just true.
Which comment?
Like, you exclusively play games that require a shaman.
I do?
Yeah.
I think it's because Debbie likes to become like Sherpa.
I do like to be a teacher. I don't think
so
that
he
I do,
likes
though.
to like lead people down that road. So if he has a game that can make people like interact with him and like need to get information from him, he can kind of like run groups through it.
I would almost say that I prefer games that have the complexity that like need player engagement, like teaching, like players helping players is a huge part of my gaming experience, I guess.
Yeah, like I could totally, like with you and you like MMOs and like GTFO,
Hey,
RuneScape, Warframe. Like
Yeah,
you just
that's
like
fair.
I
I like a lot of deep games with a bunch of content. I mean, GTFO doesn't really have a bunch of content, but it is deep.
But it did for a while because it had like rotating, like they would throw out whole new rundowns and stuff. So it was like there was seemingly always more content on the horizon.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously not.
GTFO is starting to feel like the cycle for me. Where it's like I used to like it and now I don't like it anymore. Like it's like they're like slowly making it worse and worse and like kind of no one's talking about it.
I don't think they're making it worse and worse. I think they just stopped working on it. So now it just feels like it's not going anywhere. They're just adding old rundowns at this point.
Yeah, I mean like that's what I mean by worse. Like they were making it better and then they went back to what they did before. So it's like objectively worse because it's not what they've been making. I mean literally the last mission we did together didn't have a checkpoint on it.
Yeah, that was I'm surprised they didn't add those, but to be fair, they would also have to rebalance the entire rundown to make those like make sense to be added back to because they
take
were
the extra
balanced.
2 hours to do that. Like
I agree, but it's just people want the old experience, and you can't have that if you're gonna add the new stuff to it. People would complain about that too. It's a lose-lose.
I feel like people just want the old experience because nostalgia is everything, and even if it's only like a few years ago, for some reason they yearn it. I don't know why.
I think if I had to guess why, it'd be because most of the player base of GTFO are probably like older men who are like, that is the top demographic to who you sell nostalgia to.
That's
True.
fair.
That's fair.
Good evening,
Sure.
Arbiter. Carhill, no quiz today. There will be many, many big announcements about it when the quiz is coming. I promise. I'll even try my hardest to make Jamie make an announcement about it. We'll see if we can't figure that out. maybe I'll bully Giz into helping me out in that regard.
Bully.
But my assumption is that the quiz will be the first podcast following my subathon. Because I'm probably going to do the subathon, then I'm probably going to take a couple days at least of a break and do the quiz then.
Understandable.
I have
after
all the
going
answers I
nonstop.
need now. Maybe I think I only need 5 or 6 more, but I can do that on my own easy. I was preparing to do 20 of them on my own, so.
Yeah, I think I got a couple people when I posted about it in my Discord who started doing it. Or at least they asked me a lot of questions about it.
I'm excited to do it again. I will tell you a little bit of a teaser about how we're going to do it this time. This time, everybody in chat's going to be directly involved instead of just kind of keeping your own score. Because I found last week an extension that allowed me to host a quiz on chat, on stream, to where chat could type in exclamation point A, B, C, D, and the whole quiz thing will keep up with your score alongside the entire event. So I'm just going to have you guys answering in the chat, yeah, I'll have you guys answering in the chat alongside everybody with your votes.
Oh,
and
okay.
Yeah, so the scoring will be for everyone. You guys are going to be competing against chat as well in that sense.
Oh, okay, fuck.
Yeah.
I thought that was just like a Jackbox party pack, they kind of, you're participating, but you're not the game, you know?
No.
The unplugged controller.
It's
It's just a big leaderboard where everyone's involved.
The only thing I'm worried about is that if someone ahead of us types the right answer when we see it and we just type it too, potentially.
I mean, that's a good
right,
point if you have faith, yeah, because all the answers are going to be as a letter. So I mean, I guess to be fair, you guys could just be reading chat. Yeah, we'll discuss that.
I kept chat closed last time, unlike the other two contestants.
Hey,
so...
I
wait,
kept chat closed. What do you mean?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't remember. Maybe I did talk to
You were
chat.
just replying
Okay.
with telepathy then?
No, I replied in between. What do you call it?
In between questions.
Rounds.
All right, I
of
finally
cheaters.
switched this over to camera mode. Now that Jamie sat back down with his food and his drink, I think we're actually ready to get
Sorry,
started.
I just woke up.
You're fine.
Cheers,
Good
mate.
morning.
Same.
I did not. I've been waking up at like noon every day.
Oh, sorry, I know.
Cheers,
I'm
mate.
sorry about not doing the retweet. I was fast asleep, dude.
It's fine. It's fine. We're
I'm
here
not gonna
now.
lie. I forgot it was on until literally like 4 a.m. last night.
F.
Why'd I do that?
I assume that
you
means
just
you have a
drink
lot
hot
of
sauce?
materials
Yeah.
prepared for this discussion. Wait,
Are
did you
gonna
drink?
be okay? He just drank
Yeah, I'm
hot sauce.
fine.
Hold on.
He said cheers. I had to find something that was on my desk that I could drink.
I
It's
mean,
either
like-
that or vodka, I guess.
zoomed
If
in
no
on your
one got me,
suffering.
Chunk got me.
That's right.
Zoomed in on Chunk suffering.
I mean, I'm fine. I got a little bit of
No,
tears
okay.
in the corner of my eyes, but it's fine.
Round 2.
Do it
pussy.
again?
Oh my god, the cameras are a little fucked on
Hey,
this,
Jamie
aren't
did
they?
it for like a month and a half.
Yeah, I just
but
saw
he
that
was,
too,
he
Andrew.
was getting things for it. What am I getting besides like?
A good pat on the back from friends.
You know, that's what it is.
No, he did.
Oh, true. Clean sinuses. Yeah, clear yourself up.
Cleanse you
I
out.
can't breathe better. It's kind of nice.
All right. So, chat, you may have seen, if you noticed my tweet, that we are trying a slightly different format this week. We're going to be reducing our overall podcast time from 4 hours, which I know is a long, good, satisfying time, but we've noticed that we've started to get more and more off topic as podcasts have gone. So we're going to try to do a more standard podcast length and do like 1.5 hours to 2 hours this time, just to kind of feel that out and see how that feels, especially for people rewatching on things like YouTube and Spotify, because I do think 4 hours is a pretty fat chunk of content to watch when we're only on topic for like a third of it, right? So
Oh, for sure.
we're gonna try to stay on topic a little bit better, which happens to be parody games. Now, we picked this topic. I think it might seem a little bit of a strange as a topic up front, but we picked parody games as a topic because Airvan and I were up pretty late one night having a conversation. We were talking about like Goat Simulator, and I think Airvan was saying that he didn't respect those games until I kind of described them in a new way. So, or maybe I'm misremembering that conversation.
Oh, it's similar to that. It was basically like, I didn't really know how to categorize games like Goat Simulator in my head,
Right.
until you said parody games, because parody in my head was only something that was attached to movies or episodes. I've only ever heard parody movies or parody episodes. So when you said parody games, I was like, yeah, obviously. Like, why wouldn't parody also be applicable to video games, and why wouldn't there be a lot of entries into that category? And then I started looking into it and realized there's a lot of games that I didn't think were parody games are parody games. Like one that I found relatively interesting is Saints Row is technically a parody game of
Yes,
GTA.
True. Yeah, I didn't think about that
And
either.
There's a lot of things like that where you're like, oh yeah, if you think about it, like yeah.
But
And
what's weird about Saints Row? It didn't start that way.
Yeah, I thought the first one was actually like a relatively serious game, and it wasn't until like the second and third one. Third one for sure.
They needed to do something. They needed to do something different to separate themselves from being a GTA clone.
I think
That's fair.
sequels, and this is a hot take, I know. I think sequels are bullshit. I think it doesn't matter when a game comes along. A game should be held on its own, no matter what. Like, I think you should look at a game objectively the way it is. Like, it's like, oh yeah, it's pretty good, but it's even better if you play the original. It's like, that's fine. Like, you can have that opinion. But I think that a game can't be good because the original was good.
I actually,
for sure.
I think I hold sequels to a higher
I don't think
standard.
that's what we're saying though.
Yeah, no,
Well,
it's just
no,
because we're talking about like a trilogy or a
No,
series.
you were just saying like it's weird that it didn't start that way. I'm saying specifically like Saints Row 3 is its own game. Like it's like
It shouldn't
For
be
sure, yeah.
judged on the merits
yeah,
of Saints Row
yeah.
1 and 2.
Call
Yeah.
of Duty 19 is its own game. You don't think about it as
I agree.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
I just meant that it's very weird for a company to just switch to parody after doing 2 games that weren't.
It is,
It is
and
weird.
to leave it in the same franchise too, like to not even rename it or rebrand it in any way, shape, or form. They just left it and shipped it, and it was just like a Was
Everyone
Saints Row
just
the
kind of
Third the first
accepted it
parody
happen.
one?
The first two were not parody whatsoever. They were
Okay,
very
so the
like,
first two.
serious
Yeah.
games.
I only played
it-
4, which was glorious.
But you say that we say they were serious, but then they had stuff like the mini games, like insurance fraud, which was like ragdoll. You had to like try and like
Yeah.
get hit by as many
Ragdoll, yeah.
cars as
Well,
you
I
could.
mean, just because something is goofy odd doesn't mean it's like
Yeah, because you
parody.
could argue that about
I know.
GTA too. to be
I
fair.
just meant like the ideas of silliness were already there.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. It's
Hmm.
like it reminded me of sort of like weirdly enough of Rabbids from the Nintendo series, where like
Mhm.
the gameplay is meant to be taken seriously, but the surrounding like aura isn't, obviously, because they're
Yeah, for sure.
goofy rabbits.
So that
like-
actually leads us into where I think we agreed to start this conversation, which is
Defining
defining a parody game. Like how are we going to categorize, excuse me, how are we cauterizing these wounds? How are we going to categorize what is and isn't a parody game? Because there are games like,
parody's
I'm going to
not.
say Goat Simulator, that are clearly meant to be parody before it's a game. Like parody's half the point of that game, I feel like. Versus a game like Rayman that is a video game that just has a bit of emphasis on comedy.
Yeah.
Or even a game like Portal that's definitely like a really cool interactive puzzle game, but also happens to be one of the funniest games ever made.
Yeah, it's weird because like I feel like a large part of, because like of course you could Webster's dictionary, of course you could do that, but like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like we need to discuss it as like a group, as a society, as a subculture.
Well, I think okay, so this is just one of the ways I define it because I watch a lot of TV and stuff, and you have a lot of parody TV shows like Robot Chicken and shit.
Oh yeah.
Right. The way I look at it is it deliberately is trying to tell a message through comedic standpoints, and that message is usually about the it's usually about the original artwork, talking about that original artwork, but in a comedic sense.
Yeah.
By pointing out something silly about an artwork and making fun of that silliness,
So
even
you're
if it's
saying parody
serious
has to be
subject.
referential.
Yeah,
it
that's
has
what I was
to be
gonna say.
yeah,
referencing
it has to
something.
be. It has to be talking about something.
Okay.
You can't
I-
just parody nothing.
I agree to an extent, but I also think that you can do it to a more subtle nature, or by doing that, you just like basically parody a genre, and so it's more stylized and actually
But even
referential
still-
about like a specific thing or piece.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it's still like about something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Even if it's about a genre, it's still about an original piece. It's pointing out the flaws in a system or a story or gameplay, and like blowing those out of proportion and making a silly thing about it, right?
So you think it's like the caricature of like this
Yes,
kind of world. Okay.
yeah, that's exactly okay. Like we were talking about.
Imitating something else's like style or theme, or imitating something
Yeah.
else in general, but
Yeah.
like being clearly exaggerating it in some way,
Well,
or
that's like definition of, because
I feel like that's a good place to start.
People always
personally, but-
say,
For sure.
because what people always say is like, that's not parody, it's satire. Like I see that all the time, and it's like there is such an easy distinction between parody and satire. Parody is an exaggeration that is meant for comedy. Satire is an exaggeration that is meant for ridicule. That is it. That is
Yes.
the only line.
Yeah, 100%.
So like, why would someone say
So
like?
the intent
sound like
behind it
Saints
is
Row
a big
or-
important difference.
Yeah, like I think satire is you know that president from Metal Gear Solid? You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about? The guy who just
Yeah.
gets like absolutely
one?
beat on. The
You're
huge
talking
buff
about
of
Revengeance. He's talking about
standing.
Yeah.
Revengeance.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, like that president, like that is satire of.
He's
of,
not, I
like,
don't think he's
capitalism.
actually a president, is he? I think he's just a.
I thought he was like
Is he a
literally.
president?
He was like the
Thought he-
in-lore president of the United States. Like he was. He
Yeah,
was
I
supposed to
thought
be like
so.
this.
I haven't played any of them, but fuck, this brings up something that we could talk about. Fuck. Okay.
Well,
Politics in video games.
do we kind of all agree? I mean, Devin hasn't really elaborated too much. Are we fine with that definition? Strictly
Senator.
of kind of like senator.
Senator,
Okay,
that's
he
the
wasn't
one.
president. It was, it
I
was.
feel
It
like
was
we
in the
bounced
same.
around on a lot of different things. Did we all agree on a specific?
I feel like for the most
Yeah,
part we kind
sorry.
of agree there has to be, basically just we have to differentiate one between parody and satire and make sure.
Yeah,
that we
I agree
understand
with
that
that
it's not supposed to be
differentiation between
ridicule.
parody and satire for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, exaggerating for comedy, not exaggerating
Yeah.
for ridicule.
Yeah,
I'm
and
trying
it
to
has
think of
to
an
be-
example where there was satire in a video game. Can you think of a time where a video game was clearly trying to ridicule something else?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. That would
entire
be
game.
Postal 2.
Oh, true. Yeah, that's a good one.
I haven't played Postal 2.
Don't know what that is.
Yeah,
yet.
Postal 2 takes a bunch of things. It's a bunch of generalizations about groups of people and makes absolute mick out of them. You know, it's like by today's standards. You know what's funny is I think you can actually play it technically on Twitch. I think it recently got D pulled off. You might have to look that up. But Postal 2 has a bunch of like what I could see some people calling racist humor.
Mm-hmm.
It has a bunch of very touchy subjects, but it puts them on. Whether it does it well or not, that's not what we're here to discuss. But
Yeah,
it does.
fair.
It does take those ideas and try to make ridicule out of them.
It always seems like they you kind of have to lean politically when it comes to satire. Like you guys know the game what's it called? Little Inferno?
Yeah.
Came out like years ago at this point. But it was like a puzzle game.
I don't
And-
think you technically needed a. Sorry, I'll let you finish your point.
Yeah, no, it's just like when it comes to games of satire, I feel like it's pretty easy to differentiate because they're not funny in a traditional sense, or like comedy's subjective and everything, but they're not
Yeah.
funny because they're funny. They're funny because you like political commentary most of the time.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Okay, I guess so. I think South Park is one of those examples where
Yeah.
that may
both of
not
them.
necessarily be true.
Yeah, I guess
I don't
that
think you
one's
need to
kind of
be.
both. No, I think that game's kind of like weirdly enough like a South Park game. You know what I mean? Like
What
No,
about
no,
the
not
South
even
Park
game.
games?
I'm talking about legitimately
Yeah, you're
South
talking
Park.
about it in
No.
yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the show South Park?
But we're trying to define satire, right? And you
Maybe.
said it can't. It doesn't necessarily need. It needs to be political.
Well, it
And
just
you
needs to
need,
be
no, you need to
ridiculous.
have a political lean in order to enjoy it. I don't think you need a political lean to enjoy South Park.
What I meant by that is most like 99% of the time satire is done politically. It's sort of like 99% of the time
okay.
you have a crepe, it's sweet, but there's also tons of ways you could have crepe that are savory.
Generally, you just
fair,
expect
fair.
a crepe to be sweet.
Exactly. So if you see satire, you usually expect it to be like some sort of societal or political commentary. I don't want a crepe now.
It's interesting that definition: a work that imitates another or performance with ridicule or irony.
Yeah, I was interested
Because
in
I
that
don't
as
think
well.
parody. Yeah, maybe parody does lean a little bit on ridicule, but I don't think it leans as much as satire does. The idea of satire, especially if you look at like South Park, right? South Park will make some like racist jokes, but the point isn't to laugh at the racist joke; it's to make fun of the people who would actually think those things are serious.
There's a
right?
layer of irony there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the point is to laugh, whereas I think parody will ridicule aspects of something rather than a generalized.
You
ridicule.
choose what to exaggerate. I mean, like, go to literally any game on Steam that ends in simulator, and you're probably seeing that. You know, like you go to like YouTube simulator, streamer simulator, cell phones, like any of those, you see an exaggeration, very chosen exaggerations in each of those games.
I saw a screenshot from Game Dev Simulator where someone said that the game was broken because it wouldn't let you ship an unfinished title.
Damn.
Based.
God, yeah, I wasn't anticipating having to. I was ready to define. Well, actually, I guess I wasn't. I didn't have a definition in ready for how I draw the line between what I do and don't consider a parody game or a satire game. I definitely wasn't ready to get into a semantics decision discussing the differences between satire and parody.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the first one we got to break through. Of, like,
Hey, yo,
you
the
have
dump
one or
truck
the
one?
other. Or...
I have my raid sounds on. I forgot. Welcome in,
No,
Piggy.
you're good.
Keep that big.
Welcome
dumpy
in.
in the
Happy
chat.
birthday, my guy.
Yeah, happy birthday, Piggy.
It's Piggy's birthday.
Yo,
man?
happy
It
birthday,
is.
homie.
It's
Happy
Bacon Day.
birthday! Oh my
Legend.
lord, that's fantastic. He was voted most chill guy on earth by 2 guys.
Oh, make it 3.
Oh,
Hey,
Four.
make it 4.
Yeah, 5.
5.
even.
Sheesh.
voted most chill guy on earth by 5 guys.
Welcome in, Raiders.
Restaurant.
Today we
It's
are
up there.
discussing parody in video games. Currently, we're trying to summarize our, I guess we're trying to define the difference between parody and satire, which I think we're narrowing in.
Yeah, I would say it very much depends on the message being sent.
Mhm.
Because I've got some examples that I'll bring up later that I think play that parody well, but don't satire it.
Mhm.
Satirize, is that the word?
Satirize, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that because like, there's also games that are like, as I said earlier, like just goofy. Like I tried to see some people argue that Balloons is a parody game on tower defense. And I'm
Balloons
like,
is tower defense.
That's
You
what I'm
can't
saying. Like,
parody
Yeah,
yourself.
I think it's just a different skin. Just because something is reskinned and in the same genre doesn't make it a parody by default, right?
that was my like defense is like it is just goofy tower defense. Like it's not a parody of it just because it's silly, you know? Like I'm trying to think of like just because you go to like an arcade racing game doesn't mean that like it is a parody of Forza.
So are we basically boiling it down to like it comes down to the intent of it? Like satirical stuff would try to expose more, whereas parody is just for the fun of it.
Yeah, it
I'd
seems
say
like
so, yeah.
it's
I think satire, in my mind, has an intent behind it. Like they want to pick something apart and draw attention to a thing, whereas parody is just like, this is dumb fun.
so intentional, silly, for comedy,
Mhm.
exaggerative, and referential. Like it has to be all those things.
Mhm.
Oh, I think I did it backwards. While a parody targets and mimics the original work to make a point, a satire uses the original work to criticize something else entirely. This is a hard discussion we've gotten ourselves
Wait.
into.
I don't think they're
I just
mutually
want-
exclusive.
I just want to say no to that. I feel like that's maybe a definition of satire, but that doesn't feel like the definition of satire. You know, it feels like the third or fourth one down, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I think we just need to make a distinction of what we would consider personally, for the sake of this conversation, a parody game. And for me, I think the definition where I would draw the line between a game that's funny and a parody game is the intention behind the game. Did Portal 2 set out to make a comedy game? No, but they succeeded. It's not a parody game. It just happens to be a funny game. But Goat Simulator did not set out to be a good game. That was a parody game.
Another good one, Stanley Parable.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Also not a good game, but a great parody game of like our choices in games, right?
Yeah, is dictates that the player actually has no player agency, that everything that they've determined to do within a game has been predefined by the developers.
There is no
Okay.
real choice. That's the message to be delivered.
Yeah.
That game sits in a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
Oh,
I really
same.
want
Yeah,
the Super
Stanley
Deluxe
Parable's
version.
excellent.
I haven't played. I have. This is gonna sound so weird to anyone who hasn't played the Stanley Parable, but I have done almost every ending, and there's so many bucket endings that I haven't gotten. I want that DLC so I can use the bucket and play that game a completely different way.
Yep.
Are you still waiting for the 5-year ending, whatever it's called?
I just got it actually a couple weeks ago.
Hey, that's
Yep.
sick.
There is an achievement in Stanley Parable, which even the achievements of Stanley Parable are parody of achievements, and I love it. It's amazing. Let me pull up Stanley Parable on Steam real quick and just get a list of those. So I'm sure everybody in chat, or you're either a gamer or gamer adjacent. So just an example of some of the achievements that Stanley Parable has to make fun of achievements. My personal favorite is the achievement, click on door 430 5 times. So if you're unfamiliar and you haven't played the game, if you go and click on door 430 5 times, the game knows that you did that because you looked at the achievements and wanted the achievement. So the narrator will talk about, oh, well, this doesn't really feel like you've earned an achievement. Maybe you need to go touch touch door 419 7 times, and then you go do that. It's like, yeah, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Maybe climb on 419's desk now. Yeah, okay, and it just takes you on a whole adventure. And at the very end, it's like the announcer's super fucking excited. He's like, and finally, click on 435 times, and then you click it, and you get the achievement. He's like, now that is an achievement well earned. And I just, God, it's so good.
For sure.
The Stanley Parable is a masterclass in delivering a message in an incredibly funny way.
Yeah.
Honestly, go play it if you haven't played it. It's very fun.
Even if you don't understand the message it's trying to deliver without understanding it, it's very funny.
Yeah.
The achievement I just got a couple weeks ago is the achievement Go Outside. To unlock it, you don't play the Stanley Parable for 5 years. And the achievement I'm too lazy to get is Commitment, which is play the Stanley Parable for the entire duration of a Tuesday. So maybe someday I'll leave it open on my computer or something. Yeah, Stanley Parable is a fantastic game for this conversation.
When I first played the game on stream, someone brought up a really good point that I still think about to this day. And that's Stanley Parable is funny, but it's made funnier because the main voice you're listening to the whole time is a very posh British man. Which is, no matter what he says, makes everything default funny.
It's a cheat code, dude. It's a cheat code for comedy.
Someone said the other way to make something funny, like while using a voice, is a country hick. And I was like, I want to play the Stanley Parable. Where it's like Toe Mater the whole time. I want to see how different the experience would feel if it was just like.
I'm interested. Can we get Chunk to re-record every voice line as Girth Brooks? I think is what it was. We did an off-stream recording, and Chunk took on the persona of Girth Brooks.
I could at least do a recording and like record the main.
Like a path. Just pick a path, and we make a video. That'd be so funny.
I could do that.
Yeehaw.
Another really interesting game that I didn't think about as parody until we had this conversation, which it so clearly is. It's just like Airman. I didn't really consider parody games as like a genre, or I didn't think about it very hard. But very recently, Trombone Champ. If you haven't played that, Yeah, unironically, one of the best rhythm games I have played in years, but it's just a parody taking the piss out of rhythm games. It's such a good game, but it's ridiculous. I'm trying to, I mean, it's like, one of the things that I've noticed, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this, that I think links together a bunch of these parody games, or games that are meant to be like silly, is deliberately unintuitive controls, or like kind of wonky inputs just for the sake of comedy. Like the inputs work on Trombone Champ, but it's very clearly just a big slide where you're not gonna be 100% all the time. They want you to be like half a note off, barely hitting the note, making the song sound fucking terrible the whole time you play. That's like half the point.
Do you think that like has to be a point? Because like my first
doesn't have to be. I've just noticed it's common. Yeah, Surgeon Simulator, Goat Sim is like that.
Is Surgeon Simulator considered a parody game? Is it like a surgery parody?
Yeah, I would kind of consider it so, right? But it's like, but can you consider it a parody game if there's not a game that like, it's parodying something in life, but does that in itself make it a parody?
I don't know, because it could also be considered like if a parody game has to be parodying another game, you could say it's like a parody of Operation, technically.
I don't think a parody game has to parody games, first of all. I think it can parody anything, but...
Or, sorry, some sort of media, I meant to say.
I don't think Surgeon Sim parodizes surgeons. I think that it's, like, just meant to be...
Yeah, it's just silly.
It's meant to just be a silly game. It has no point to make. It's not critiquing anything. It's just bad controls the game, and here's a task to do. Like, I don't think the surgery means anything to it.
Maybe not, but I always took it as the reason it's difficult and stuff was to emphasize like how difficult that job was. Maybe in a silly like light or whatever.
Exaggerating how hard surgery is.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of the entire point, was that it's like, people always use the reference of like, it's not brain surgery or whatever, right? Or anything like that. So it felt like a parody off of like a social understanding. of like, oh, because in some of the cases it really wasn't easy. You literally smash open the rich cage with the hammer, take out all the organs, and you toss a new heart in there, and then it goes, you did it, and you don't have to do anything else. And so it's like, to me, that was the entire point of it. But that was just me.
And again, obviously we got to that from wonky controls. That game was clearly designed to have fucky controls. That's like the point of the game, is that it's hard to play. I agree with you, Jamie. I don't think it's like it's a requirement, but I feel like it's a staple in parody games at this point to have like the controls are kind of fucky or it's kind of buggy intentionally to cause these funny moments.
That's kind of interesting because when you look up parody games, one of the first ones is considered QWOP.
Interesting.
So my one to that would be the South Park games, particularly Stick of Truth and Fractured Butthole. So the whole thing behind Stick of Truth is to satirize fantasy RPGs, and the silliness behind them. The Stick of Truth being a MacGuffin, it's not anything. The Stick of Truth means nothing. It's a stick, and yet it's the most important object of the game, and you have to get it. And the steps that you go through to get it are just ridiculous. And when you get it, it turns out it's actually a very powerful artifact. And this stupid stick that everyone's been fighting over resurrects like dead Nazis and stuff like that. And that's a really good one. And then you've got Fractured Butthole, which is satirizing. Now this is an interesting one. It's satirizing the entire like Marvel structure. So it's not even satirizing other games, right?
Yeah.
It's satirizing an entire genre of media rather than just a type of game. I don't think it necessarily needs to have fucked controls.
Not needs. I would say it's like I considered it a staple, like towers in an open world game. There's not towers in every open world game, but it's fairly abundant.
Yeah, in bad ones.
Yeah, it's like a stereotype. It's not consistent. It's just in almost every one of these examples. I feel like bad controls seems to be an intentional decision in a lot of these parody games.
On the note of bad controls in parody games, I was having like an internal struggle the other day when I was trying to figure out if it's a parody game or not. What do you guys feel about Happy Wheels?
Nah, I don't think so. Again, I don't think it's about I don't think it's about sending a message. It's not criticizing anything. It's not.
No.
It's not making a point. It's just a silly like go from A to B type game, you know?
Yeah. Also, a lot of it is like sandbox for like other people to make their own stuff in it, right? It feels like the game itself is a little bit lacking in its own substance and feels more like a sandbox playground for people to create things.
It's like Mario Maker. Like Mario Maker is not a.
So originally, that was like the purpose behind it was to be like, it was like satire or being parody of like very popular Flash games at the time that were just like needless gore, like completely random comedy reference. It has a lot of references to YouTubers and popular internet personalities of the time in the main game. So it's kind of weird to not put it on the list, considering it does have more in it that is parody than other games that we do consider parody, like Stanley Parable.
I was gonna agree with you on it being. I was gonna call it parody light, just because it feels like it's just taking the common elements of this like line rider slash that old Flash game genre of driving the motorcycle or the dirt bikes or the monster trucks on like difficult terrains. It's like that old Flash game platformers, side scrollers, yeah. But they do exaggerate it by making your character killable, which they tend to not be in that Flash game market that it was imitating. But on top of being killable, like brutally and very, very much the point of the game killable, like blood everywhere, limbs hanging off, eyeballs flying across. Like I feel like just that element of it was like them taking the piss out of that style of game. It might not be like it have an impact or a point. It's just kind of
like side scrollers of that time. Like we often forget that side scrollers were huge in that time. Like the reason the game was originally created was because the author wanted a Flash version of a popular game called Trials. and
Yeah.
the dude wasn't a very good creator, but he tried his best, and then it popped off from YouTubers like
PewDiePie.
Tobuscus.
Tobuscus, yeah.
Tobuscus was a big one who kind of like pushed it forward.
I don't know. I don't think making a game with the intention of it being similar to another game necessarily makes it a parody.
Well, like that's a big thing about parody is, right? It's mimicking, right?
Yeah, but then like
I think the part that I start to agree with you is
have,
because
like,
of how exaggerated it is, right? Like you used to have Line Rider where it's like if you flip upside down, the guy would like fall off sometimes, and he would like wreck, and then it would just like you'd have to start over, and you try to create another custom track. But it's like with Happy Wheels, you had all these different characters using like ridiculous like a Segway or like a bicycle with like a kid on the back or something like that. So even like the characters themselves,
An old man
felt
in a wheelchair.
Yeah, old man in a wheelchair. It's like, I think the character being exaggerated, the map being exaggerated, the death being exaggerated,
Fat
to
dude
me
on the
is what
lawnmower,
makes
yeah.
it maybe does like make it cross the line to parody.
And then
but we just spent some time dictating that parody usually has to have a criticism. So what is the criticism of that game?
I thought we said that
What was that
satire
discussion
was
before?
what had
satire.
Yeah, I thought we
Satire
agreed
has
that
that
was the
criticism.
satire definition, yeah.
So what is parody?
I think it's like making comedy like by exaggerating.
Yeah,
Like,
exaggerated
I-
comedy.
So like
I think we just
violence in video games was big. Yeah. Because like what was that like what's the one game that the four of us played that one time and Chunk kept spawning in black holes?
Ultimate Chicken Horse.
Ultimate Chicken Horse. I feel like that's also kind of in the same realm of like it's a parody of traditional platforming party games. Even though
Yeah.
it brings something unique to the table, it kind of feels like it's paradise, or what's the word for making something into a parody?
Paradising?
Paradising?
I don't know. Sounds right to me.
That sounds kind of like a band.
Parodies.
I do think parody is definitely not black and white. I think there's a sliding gradient here of some things are clearly meant to be a parody, and then some things have more, focus on being a good game instead of being parody. Yeah, it's just there isn't going to be a very easy dividing line between what.
Maybe we
it's
should
a little
just
subjective.
take a game. Parody is Goat Simulator, satire is GTA 5. Like I think that we should just have that be our baseline, and then we kind of expand off that.
Okay.
Yeah, but
the
Goat
doesn't do
Simulator is
best
making a
representation.
point.
What point does Goat Sim make?
Yeah.
They're just revenue
Needless scoreboards, needless achievements, the fictitious of player agency.
Good point.
It makes so many points. Like I don't like Goat Simulator, but
I think
it exists for a reason. Its artwork stands to make a point. Same with
Okay.
Stanley Parable, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
Same
So-
with
Werewolf feels
South
more
Park.
like-
It almost seems like satire is externally referential and parody is self-referential. If you're going with that definition, then, because like Goat Simulator is referencing games and like other things in games.
It references games, but a reference alone is not enough to make something a parody,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, it references games, but
But
like
the exaggerative mimicry, I feel like is enough to make it
well,
parody.
yeah, the exaggerative mimicry, but it goes to make a point, right? Like the fact that Goat Simulator has a scoreboard is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Why would a game like Goat Simulator have a scoreboard? It's to point out the silliness of like player achievements, right? In a game, like who gives a fuck about player achievements in a game like Goat Simulator? The point is just to have fun. So when you attach a point system to it, it's almost like making fun of the fact that games will have point systems just to give players a competition when none should exist, right? The fact that you can anything that you can decide to do in Goat Simulator will award you points. Even the most outlandish idea that you think you've came up with completely on your own was intended by the developers. They knew you were going to do that, right? That's why it gives you points. And you thought you were clever, but it doesn't,
That's fair potentially for Goat Simulator at least. I think the big dividing factor is it critical of everything? Like any game that is supposed to be satire, is it trying to prove a negative point about the thing it's referencing? Parody can be
necessarily be negative.
I think it does, absolutely. How do you make satire without it being like?
There's no positive way to look at ridicule. I think ridicule like is very much so a negative connotated word.
It can have a positive it can have a positive outcome, but it in itself is a negative thing.
The Stanley Parable I wouldn't call negative.
I don't know.
I mean, it points out to the player. It points out to the player, right, that you like the lack of player agency is not a negative thing on the player's side, but something to be celebrated by the player. The fact that developers are willing to put in so much work to give you so many options to play the game, right? I don't think that's a negative thing by any standard. I think that's like celebrating the work the developers do, but also pointing out that, like, you know, everything that you thought you could do in a video game has been coded and has been deliberately crafted by the creator.
But so then do we think that's satire? Or do we think it's more parody then? Do we still think it's satire?
Parody. It's parody.
Yeah. So then, if it's not, the thing is, what I'm saying, satire itself should be critical.
I didn't expect this whole conversation to divulge down to, is that satire or parody, though?
It's kind of what it has to be, though. It's like, at the end of the day, it's semantics, and how we best describe something by pigeonholing these games into genres comes down to how we define that genre, right? And since we have a parody, which is very close to other, like, you know,
well, it's difficult, like, given that we all have different subjective opinions on the dividing line between these two words, especially when I thought it was gonna be very easy and clear cut. And then the definitions that we pulled from chat are very different than the ones that we thought. I have a dictionary command in my chat that pulled up very different definitions than what we found elsewhere. So,
but well, I mean, maybe for you guys, but like I was under the understanding that parody and satire were kind of hand in hand.
Yeah, I guess I didn't.
To parody something is the action, and through which you satirize an object.
That
you use satire to create parody. I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
So, but then in that case, does it ever come down to, are they ever separate? If I mean, I agree with you. I don't think they have to be mutually exclusive, and I think they can work in tandem with each other. But
I think when it comes to gameplay loops, that's where the parody comes in, right? To say something satirical as part of your dialogue is not necessarily parody, but to create an entire game based around satirizing particular parts of gaming culture, I would say is parody.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that definition. I'm just trying to think if there's any other like nuanced situations where that wouldn't necessarily be true. But I think at the end of the day, what I'm basically figuring out is that nuance will always exist in this world to some extent. So it's like we could waste our time trying to run in circles, chasing those nuances, or we could just like accept this definition and kind of.
I just think it doesn't exist. Like I don't think there really is a distinction between the two. I think that everything's a parody game. Like I think that is the category, and you can have satire in parody games. Like I like.
Well, you can't have satire in parody games because I don't think parody can exist without satire.
That's the opposite of what you just said. You said the exact opposite thing.
Then a parody game has to have satire.
Yeah, okay. So let me say it very clear and defined. A parody game has to have satire, but satire existing in a game does not by default make it parody.
Every pee time is you know.
Yeah.
Every poo-poo time is always pee-pee time, but not every pee-pee time is poo-poo time.
Pee-pee time is poo-poo time. Exactly.
I hope
that is actually ridiculously, that works as a metaphor.
Games can have satire, but parody games have to have satire.
Yes.
Okay. Well, then let's go by the category of these are all parody games.
It's not satire for no reason. The satire is used to prove a point, right? In this case of Stanley Parable, it's player agency. There's a lot of them in Goat Simulator, but the main ones are player agency, high scores, achievements, right? That's what they're satirizing, is like they're creating parody out of the satire of those particular like ideas. What's up? You just saw something that you really didn't like there, Aaron.
No. I was listening to you, and then I was agreeing, and I look over and see Flintstones, and I don't know what I missed.
Oh, they've been talking about Flintstones for a while. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either. I think Sneak said something about my grandpa, so I said that my grandpa is really cool and not a parody. I don't know.
I think it was. I kind of get the. I mean, bringing up Flintstones in general because I think Flintstones is supposed to be like satirically making fun of like modern families, right, and stuff, but like from an olden age perspective.
That's the difference between satire and parody, right? Is like just different ways of making fun of something.
Well, okay,
I don't even know anymore, man. I feel like we've run in circles at this point.
Oh yeah, I thought that a while ago.
Satire is like, so a parody is a creation, right? It's like, you know, I'm gonna make a parody song, I'm gonna make a parody TV show, I'm gonna make a parody game, right?
Yeah, it's a physical thing.
It's a format, right? It's a, like, you can't be like, I made a joke about like this thing to satirize it, therefore I am parody now. You know, you're not parodying anything, you're just making a satirical comment. Whereas parody is like using satirical humor or themes in a creation. So the parody is like the actual creation, and the satire is the point/comedy, I think.
Okay, here's what I have found on a writing website that gives you writers and authors advice on differentiating them. Parody is best regarded as a pathway to satire, or a sort of lightweight facsimile of it, whereas satire is focused on the bigger picture, intending to satirize deeper issues beyond its chosen literary style. A parody can be a shallow instance of mimicry, which has little lasting impact.
Man, English is dumb as fuck, huh?
It is.
A little bit.
Everywhere we go, we'll find different definitions. So I think we get off the semantics. I think we make this discussion more about, I want to say, elevating and just talking about the parody games that we have played. And my main question, at least for a brief conversation now, is, and I already kind of halfway know the answer to this question, but to dramatize it a bit, are parody games dying? Because there was a big gap where they stopped being made, and it feels like, and maybe it's just hard to keep up, but it feels like they're less common now, for sure, to me, than they used to be. Dying may be an exaggeration, a parody, if you will, but
it all goes back. That's Cheetos.
Is that like at least 3 bags of Cheetos?
That's you're not wrong. There's at least 3.
I got sponsored by Cheetos once. It was dope. I had 2 whole boxes of Cheetos.
I was explaining something to Cyber while listening to you guys. I think we're in a renaissance. I think we're in a renaissance right now, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. It's coming back.
Yeah, for sure.
Not only is it coming back, we're seeing games that have been created that on their own merit are fantastic games, but exist to be a parody and satirize certain things.
Such as? I mean, I guess Trombone Champ comes to mind.
Trombone Champ's a good one.
Good example.
There was a really good indie game that came out a while ago. Fuck if I can remember the name of it.
The Looker. Thank you, Adby. The Looker is such a good parody.
It essentially existed as a pinball game, but it had a full story. It was incredibly well made. You wouldn't have thought it was a pinball game by playing it, but you do. You top down a little character that walks around, and you've got to use a baseball bat to smack like these balls into. It's like a puzzle game as well. I don't know how to explain it. It's so, fuck, man. I can't remember the name of it either.
Oh.
But yeah, it was like kind of satirizing pinball style games, but making a full like in-depth story about them. It was dope.
I have a question.
I agree with that, man. I think we're in a full renaissance.
What do you guys feel about Doki Doki Literature Club?
Yeah, it's a good one.
That's a really good one.
Do you think that's a parody game?
Yeah, 100%.
Or do you think it's a horror game?
I think it, as long as we're agreeing that,
so no spoilers.
Well, if we're agreeing that parody is for the intent of humor, I don't know that Doki Doki Literature Club's intent was to make you laugh. I don't think that was the goal.
I was on it last night. I was thinking about it, and I was like, I don't know, because it's obviously making fun of and it's exaggerating, but
I don't think it necessarily need to be funny. That's what I think I was trying to say earlier. Is I think it needs to subvert expectation.
Right. Like, by the way, did you guys take part in Leverwatch?
We're not talking about it, John. You're all good.
Okay.
Did you guys see Leverwatch?
We won't go into story about it. It's
during
Leverwatch. No.
Valentine's Day? Yeah. It
No,
was
I
like
didn't see that.
it was like an Overwatch dating sim they had specifically for Valentine's Day
Yeah.
this year. I like popped off. And like I would consider that a parody game because it's taking a bunch of characters. Like they even said in the beginning, they were like, everything said in this has nothing to do with these characters. They would never say these things. We're just using their likeness. Even though it was made by Blizzard creators. They were like, we're just doing this for the memes. And I feel like that's a pretty good example of parody. Like, what's the one pigeon one? How to Fool Boyfriend? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the pigeon
I feel like
dating
that's a great
sim,
parody example
Oh,
of like
the,
just exaggerative.
The Colonel Sanders one.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Can't
Yeah.
see a finger looking good dating
Okay,
sim.
is that a parody or an ad or both?
Oh, Cyber Opal
It's a
just said it
parody.
too.
I think it's a
think it's
parody
actually
more than a
parody.
satire. So like, I think it was just, it's a very good marketing campaign, but it's guys, this is parody.
Yeah, I think you're right. Supposedly, it's actually a very entertaining visual novel as well. Like
I
on
like
top
it a
of it
lot.
being an advertising
I
thing.
massively disagree, but
I've heard a lot of people that enjoyed it. I don't like the whole visual
Couldn't
novel
fucking
style.
stand
I don't. Similar to turn-based games, I feel like I'm not actually playing a game when I'm playing a visual novel. It's just like I tell
You're
it which die to
experiencing it?
roll, or it's like the Stanley Parable without WASD keys. It's I picked the left door. I picked that door.
So
the only, do you know the difference though is that none of the choices you fucking make matter.
True.
and yeah. I heard an argument the other day that there's no engaging combat in puzzle games that only have one solution. And it made me think about like the Watcher? No. When you're on an island, you have to put the dots.
Witness.
The Witness?
Yeah.
Sorry.
What
It made me
combat?
think
are you
about the
thinking of?
Witness. And combat. No, I wasn't thinking about combat.
Oh, I
was
thought you
thinking
said
about,
combat.
did I say combat?
You did at one
yeah.
point, but yeah.
I meant to say puzzles. Puzzles in general have no, like, there's no point to them if there's only one solution to them. And I don't know how I feel about that because it's true. Like, if you play the Witness,
It's just two
there's
different
only,
kinds of puzzles.
there's only one solution to every single puzzle in the game. So I guess like, you can argue that ruins replayability or whatever, but like, I don't know how I feel about games like that literally only have one solution because it kind of, you could think of it as a visual novel. If you just need to pick the right dialogue options, or you just need to put the blocks in the right place.
Hang, can you phrase it again?
Like, I feel like puzzle games with puzzles that only have one solution are of the same level of engagement as a visual novel.
Nah, I'll disagree with that.
Because like
I
you can
feel
put a
way
visual
more
novel.
engaged in a puzzle.
Yeah.
I'm doing something in the puzzle. I'm skipping to
You're
the next
using-
dialogue
you're-
box in a
you're
visual
using,
novel.
Yeah, you're using like mechanical
there's-
IQ.
What
I
if there's
see
no
what
point?
Airman's going for though.
What if there's no point though? What if you're just putting like blocks in a hole? That doesn't seem very engaging.
You're getting a story out of one of them at least.
Yeah, exactly. So like you can make
it's just a choice of narrative. Do you want to be engaged by a narrative, or do you want to be engaged by solving a
story.
puzzle? So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Like I feel like they're of the exact same like
Mhm.
level of engagement, but in two different directions. And I much prefer the mechanical engagement compared to words. Well,
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing as well is that like, I don't know. I see what you're going for because it's like on either aspect, it's like either socially you're thinking about how you answer things and how it impacts the story like further down the road, so you're thinking like a few steps ahead, and it's still like the same kind of brain engagement like logically, right?
I'm
But
trying to think of
the
an
puzzle
example of like basically what I'm talking about is, do you know the puzzles in the newest God of War where like you walk up and they're like, throw an axe at the rope. You throw the axe at the rope and it's like, there's your puzzle. It's done. It's like,
Yeah, that's not
That
a
is-
puzzle.
But a good visual novel has multiple outcomes.
Yeah, but
yeah, but if you
well,
want to get the outcome you want, you have to go a very specific path.
yeah.
So much so that I know a lot of visual novel
Uh,
people will restart a run because they picked the wrong.
If you were if you wanted this to be a legitimate argument, you'd like if you took God of War and there was 3 ways to complete the puzzle and each way led you down a different fucking path at that point, then yeah, maybe they're comparative. But a good visual novel allows you to take multiple avenues, right? You're allowed to it gives you some player agency, whereas the puzzles that you're talking about, which are just the throw axe at rope, congratulations, you did it, here's your dopamine.
I think that's just one-dimensional and meh, and it exists in every genre, but I don't think it's genre defining for either.
Agree.
I don't think action RPGs are defined by one-button solutions, and I don't think visual novels are defined by one path.
Precisely.
Choice, yeah.
I wasn't saying that. I'm specifically saying, like, those visual novels that you're talking about, Devi, where you're just kind of sitting there and experiencing it as it happens, and one-solution puzzles are the same.
Sure.
I wasn't
I'd
trying to
say
like
a bad
make some
puzzle game.
crazy
Well, and I mean, it sounds like a crazy point because I don't know. I disagree. I feel like you're comparing a bad visual novel to a style of puzzles. Because I don't think, as much as I meme on it, visual novels are more than click button, read the next dot box. Like Jamie said, there are generally more options, options of endings. You're working towards a goal of achieving a certain ending, or an ending that you like at the very least, if you don't have a certain ending in mind. But I feel like puzzles that only have one solution are not bad in any way.
If you
or
go
less
into
engaging,
if you go into one of those, into a good visual novel blind, right? You don't know what outcome you're gonna get, so you're just picking choices based on what you think the character would do or should do. A really good example of this, I think, is actually the supermassive games.
Yeah.
Which is like what do you call it? It's the Until Dawn, the Quarry, all that kind of stuff. I would say that they're technically visual novels. They have a way cleaner aesthetic, right? But essentially you're playing through a story as a character or set of characters, and you're making decisions for them. And each of those decisions, you don't know what's going to happen. The idea is to keep your characters alive, or at least the ones you want to. But you don't know. You're just trying to make decisions based on what you think is a smart option, right? You don't know necessarily what's going to lead to a safe outcome and what's not.
Sure.
So
I feel like that's a bad comparison, because I feel like in that game, literally it has the same ending. Genuinely, regardless of like who you keep alive or like who dies or whatever, they all have like, Until Dawn, at least I know for sure, is literally the same ending, minus like a couple of like Easter eggs. Okay, explain to me the differences then, because the way I remember it, and I've seen a couple.
There's an entire ending that you don't get unless you play the game through a certain run of experiences. Getting like certain pieces of knowledge. What's that?
Are you talking about with
Getting
Josh?
with Josh?
Like
Yep.
I don't think that changes things though. That's still like a similar, like it's still basically the same ending. For the story overall, it's just escape mountain, right? I mean, you could argue that like certain.
I can't argue my point without spoiling it.
That's fair. It's I mean, it's an old game at this point. I don't feel like it. But if
Is it old? Am I getting that old?
It's over 10 years old now.
Oh
right?
wow.
No.
Which game are we talking about again?
No.
Until Dawn?
Until Dawn came out when I first started streaming.
I mean, it was a PS4 game, right?
Really that
years
young?
ago?
Yeah, no, definitely
That's
not.
crazy if it did.
To put it into
Oh, I really
perspective,
thought it was
10
older.
years ago was like the 360.
2015, so it's 8 years old.
Damn.
Yeah. I was
That's
closer.
still older than I thought. for
Okay,
sure.
Yeah.
fuck it. Sorry to anyone who was desperately looking
Spoiler
forward to
warning
playing Until
if
Dawn.
you are not wanting to like get
So,
spoilers or anything.
Funny.
do not-
I actually ended up playing it. I'm just gonna take a bathroom break. Oh.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, go do what you need to do. All right. So like my whole point is that the ending with Josh, where he did he just take his headphones with him? I'm worried that he still has his headphones on.
Debbie, take off your headphones if you can still hear us.
Right.
Let's turn on the mic. I want to hear piss.
The ending where Josh literally turns into a Wendigo
Yeah.
doesn't occur. Like it literally doesn't occur
Unless you find all of like the
unless you
notebook pieces,
find
right?
those specific avenues.
Yeah.
And I know that like they do technically have the same ending, but it's about who you get out alive, right? That's the
Yeah.
goal of the game. But the ending changes depending on who you get out alive, because you get like that end cutscene where they're giving an interview to each of those specific people that got out, and you may not get the interview with Mike because Mike died in the mines.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess so. For me, it was just that the payoff is like really small. I guess so. It didn't feel impactful. I guess that's
entire chapters of story that you lose by having characters die.
That's true. Okay,
so you don't even get the complete story.
I guess more thought towards end of game and not necessarily along the game's road, depending on when they die. But that's fair.
Yeah.
Also, but I'm down to drop that if you are now.
Yeah. I think we've gone more.
I mean, you're good.
So
anyway, this is the
thumbs up for me.
I've also had a thought about parody games in general. I feel like it's nearly impossible, or at least far more difficult, to make a AAA parody game. I feel like it's like parody games are usually low effort purposefully.
Was it High on Life?
That was a AAA game?
I mean, it's probably pretty close. I don't think it was AAA.
No. So AAA doesn't mean studio. It means budget. And I had a pretty big budget behind it, man.
Yeah, high budget, high profile games.
Yep, and I would say that Squanch Games, being a subsidiary of, well, unfortunately, Justin Roiland's company. Yeah, I mean, I know he got cleared of stuff, but we know what cleared means in America. It just means he had more money to buy him off. Yeah. Like, it had their money behind them, right? They had a lot of money to put into that, so...
Yeah.
It was definitely high budget. It was advertised out the ass.
And that was definitely a parody of, like, Doom shooters.
At the very least, a lot of, like, review things are also calling it a AAA game. So, you know, take that for what it's worth.
Here's another one that we can throw into the air. Borderlands being the looter shooter parodies. Their literal gimmick is that their selling point is they have a quintillion guns, or whatever they call it.
They do have a
buck
ton of guns, so many guns. That's like all that is Borderlands to me. As someone who has not played a lot of Borderlands, because I struggled to get into them personally, the whole point of Borderlands is a lot of guns.
Yeah.
So you can tell me if I'm wrong.
I don't know. That doesn't. It's weird to call that a parody, I feel, of looter shooters, just because I feel like it almost defines the RPG looter shooter. Like, every RPG looter shooter is compared to Borderlands, and I feel like it's rare that other games are compared to the parody game that is usually parodized.
Yeah. So what Borderlands is making fun of was like games like Diablo. Right, where you get unnecessarily large amounts of like item drops, where 90% of them are useless garbage, just to get that one great drop that you can actually use and you wanted, right? Just because it defines the genre now doesn't mean it wasn't originally a parody.
I also feel like
that's fair. Okay.
Maybe I'm just in a weird circle in this, but I feel like I get a lot more people comparing games to like Destiny 2 as looter shooter instead of Borderlands now.
Which is funny because they're buying into that parody now. They're part of what was being made fun of.
I've always made fun of Destiny 2, so I don't know what changed.
I would make fun of Destiny 2 for a lot of reasons.
Here's my reason as to why I think AAA games. I don't think AAA games can't be, but I think they have trouble being. And the reason for that being is that most parody games are making fun of AAA games. That's
True. Very good point.
Right? Like, again, another one that I think to go back to Goat Simulator, right? The excessive amount of on-screen overlays that appear is straight up a riff on companies like EA and fucking Activision and fucking Ubisoft, right? Like,
you can headbutt
didn't one of the fucking
like
Goat Simulators have a daily check-in?
Did
you
they?
get like, I'm pretty certain.
Probably Goat Simulator, the MMO.
So with parody, you can't punch down. You can only punch up.
No, you can. That's what I'm saying.
Well, it's
just
rare
less
to
common,
punch down.
rare.
Well,
punch.
you don't really
are
look
we
so
saying-
good punching down, so
Yeah, I guess it would make
Yeah.
sense.
it's not a good
So I'm gonna
look.
say Saints Row doesn't feel like that, but I guess Saints Row, because GTA is just so huge, I guess it would be bigger than it still. But it feels like comparative on the same level to me.
Then does that
even
mean
though
you
it's
can have parody in mods? Are mods considered parody?
I'm sure there's
I
tons
mean,
of
I
parody
guess
mods,
so,
yeah.
but I don't think it really fits.
Like the Thomas the Tank Engine dragon in Skyrim, is that's not really punching
Oh
up
no, I
or
think that's
down.
just goofy. That's just
Yeah,
silly.
that's just silly goofy.
like-
That's just goofy.
That's
Well,
just
like,
hyperbole. It's just the exaggeration
in
portion of it,
Resident Evil
right?
2,
Yeah.
I changed Resident Evil 2, so instead of Mr. X wearing a trench coat and having just footsteps as audio, I changed it so he was wearing a G-string, and every time he kicked open the door, it played X Gonna Give It to You. Like, I don't think that's parody, but it is fucking funny.
By the way, sorry to get us off topic a teensy bit here, but I just wanted to say I played
Unbelievable.
Resident Evil 7 last week for the very, very first time. The first Resident Evil game that I have played since Resident
was
Evil
watching.
2 for the PlayStation 1. And boy, did I love it. Man, thank you for the recommendation. I've had so many people telling me that you included, were like, no, you need to start on number 1. You got to play number 1 first. Drew as well is like really trying to get me to play 1 before I play anything else. I'm like, if I play 1, I'm not going to like the camera angles. I'm not going to like the classic style. It's going to kill the franchise for me. I need to play the ones that I'm interested in first, and then I'll appreciate the classic one, I think.
Okay, so sorry, Chunk, would you like to go?
No, I was just gonna say basically that to me that makes sense depending on how you view it. But the reason that a lot of people wanted to suggest that was because of such a different like change in style and like gameplay wise from like 7 to 1. It's almost a different experience, and you need to know like. To me, it's like a where it came from kind of thing, right? And the evolution of it over time, I appreciate a lot. But,
yeah, I think I'll have fun looking back on that once I've finished the ones I enjoy.
Yeah.
But I am definitely starting my uncapped subathon, which starts on Sunday, by the way, with Resident Evil 8. So
one of the reasons that I was talking about playing Resident Evil 1 is because I actually think you will like it.
I'll get there. I just don't want to play it next.
I think you've got preconceived notions of what camera lock is.
I have bad
and
memories
I
of
don't think
it
you're
from PlayStation
thinking,
1.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But I don't think you're thinking about what it can do for what it can do good.
Oh no,
Right.
you've explained it to me. The fixed camera makes it to where you get to see all of the important actions, like you mentioned, being able to see like a shadow on a wall during one particular scene. Oh, I'm just using your argument that you expressed last podcast.
But there's other parts to it.
Oh yeah, I can only say one at a time.
Specifically about what you can see. it's
I just
very
can't
much
say
about
all
what
of them in the same sentence.
Oh yeah, sorry. Well, you're saying it's about what you can see, right? It's also about what you can't see.
Right. Anyway, I didn't mean to get us derailed too much. I just wanted to say I enjoyed RE7, and I'm excited to play RE8.
So, the reason I asked about mods, right, is because if you add like the Thomas the Tank Engine dragon, and like instead of having a horse, you have like Lightning McQueen that you drive around Skyrim and everything like that. Like, we don't count that as parody whatsoever.
I think user-generated content shouldn't really be taken into account.
Interesting. So if I made a Skyrim clone as a single individual independent developer with, instead of a dragon, I have Thomas the Tank Engine, instead of horses, I have Lightning McQueen.
Then it would be a parody, yeah, absolutely.
Because I started from the ground up. But
Yeah.
because it's modded, it's not considered a parody anymore.
Well, I don't think...
But what
I'm
is it
saying we can't
parodizing?
consider Skyrim a parody game because someone modded Thomas the Tank Engine into it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
agree.
all I'm
Yeah.
saying. If you make a game that is Skyrim but has Thomas the Tank Engine in it, you're parodizing Skyrim. But adding Thomas the Tank Engine into Skyrim does not make Skyrim a parody. I guess you could argue that, yeah, there are some mods that parodize things, but...
Yes.
Sure, yeah. I just don't think it adapts the overall game perception.
Right. No, yeah. No, I agree. I was just commentating on how interesting it is that the line between what is considered a mod and what is considered a parody game is basically just like not who it was published by, but like what the
Developer
whole package
intention?
is. Yeah, I guess. Does that mean there can't be unintentional parody?
No,
Like
you
if-
can't have unintentional parody because that's the point. You're meant to be making a point with parody.
Yeah, that's just like coincidental humor, I feel like, at that point.
But I mean, like,
Yeah.
is it impossible? Like, is there no situation like a good example is like Radical Heights. You guys remember Radical Heights?
No.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a battle royale that came out, was popular for like a month, then died instantly.
It was around the PUBG era.
Yeah, it was around the PUBG era, and it tried to parody like 80s
80s action heroes.
80s game show. Like
yeah.
It was like super game showy, where like, you know, like you get like money and they call it like moolah or whatever. Like it was just like, it was supposed to be a parody of like 80s game shows and stuff like that. But it was so awful, and it took so many things from so many other games. It was basically a parody of PUBG. Without trying. It was trying to be an 80s parody, but it ended up being a parody of PUBG.
Interesting.
So I'm wondering if that is true, or if it was just
I think it was just
people looking at it too much.
I don't think it was parody. I think that the community drew connections and made fun of it. Because I do think parody requires intention.
I think we would say at the start that intent matters, right?
Yeah.
So I would say
specifically
I've been saying intent matters the whole time. I think that's the most important factor of being a parody game or not.
Because otherwise it's like you'd have to say things in like other media, like Evil Dead, the original one would be parody. Even though it did eventually kind of become that, the first one was definitely not, right? Because the first one was trying to be.
The first one was like just
that the movie with like the
big great horror.
Is that the movie with like the deer head on the wall that does like the weird like talks?
Well,
I've actually seen that.
That's the second one. It's so good.
It's
number
so
two is the best
goofy.
one. Number 2 is so good. Bruce Campbell carries those movies, bro.
Fucking God.
So
I would suck the cream out of Bruce Campbell's dick.
Amen, brothers. Preaching to the heavens.
I had an interesting game.
That man's my hero.
That I wanted to see how you guys thought on the scale of parody, right? Which is Hitman 3. So you don't think of Hitman as like a very funny or parody game, but like all of the ways that you kill people tend to be pretty ridiculous and exaggerated. I think back often to like the clown outfit, the tracking briefcase that obviously that was like probably a bug, the like throwing things that just auto track onto things, but they left that in the game very intentionally, and I feel like that's
I think they just left it in because it was fun.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just
IO
fun.
Interactive are very good at like you know, man, I think I kind of agree that it could be looked at as parody. And is it 3 in particular that you're
not necessarily? Sorry, I just that was cool. The one that the Hitman trilogy.
I agree. I think the whole Hitman series in itself is kind of a parody on stealth killers, right?
Which is weird because you don't think about it like that from the beginning.
It technically counts as a suit.
Yeah.
So anywhere that you would be allowed to wear a suit, you can walk in with a clown outfit.
That just kind of feels
goofy. Did that very deliberately.
I don't know if that's like parody, because it's like, what is it parody of?
Spy movies.
Of like wearing a disguise, like a flamingo suit is
and
like
knocking
funny.
out a dude and instantly changing into his clothes, and despite the fact you look nothing like that guy, everyone just kind of accepts you're him because you're wearing his suit. Right? Logically, that makes no fucking sense.
It's a parody on like the concept of it, right? Of like
the concept of like spy subterfuge.
That's interesting. So then, because Hitman, all the Hitmans are on the same engine, they were all made basically within like a year of each other, and they were basically all the same game but released differently. Yeah, those 3 Hitmen. Yeah. So does that mean DLC can be parody? Like
Blood Dragons and Far Cry.
Yeah, Blood Dragons. Yeah, that's a parody for sure.
We went to the exact same place for that, dude. I knew where you were going.
Yeah.
That's an amazing DLC too. That's
so
an incredible.
Mods can't be parody, but DLC can.
Mods can be parody.
Because it's made by the creators.
I think the difference is we can't consider Far Cry 3 parody because Far Cry Blood Dragon exists. That's where I'm saying the mods differentiate from the game itself.
The DLC is a parody, but not the game itself.
Yeah, so like a mod can be a parody, but that doesn't make the game a parody. The DLC of Far Cry 3 is clearly a parody, but doesn't make Far Cry 3 a parody. It's like its own detached entity, I feel like. With mods as well.
Far Cry 4 through 7 are definitely satire. Like 100%, especially 5.
I feel like every Far Cry after 3
funny to be satire. It's supposed to be comical.
I actually wanted to get into that,
but it was the exact same thing.
For sure.
I actually wanted to get into that and say that we should not discuss whether something has to be funny to us to be parody, because man, it's like
It is
High on Life
subjective,
is not parody to me because it wasn't funny to me, but to a target audience, that game was fucking hilarious. That was the funniest shit ever. So
that game got me to giggle twice. That's the only respect I have for it.
it made me, a couple times it really got me, I'll admit. There were a few jokes in that really, really landed. And then there was the people talking about High on Life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think High Life is a parody. It's a parody of like Doom likes.
I think we're just saying whether or not it doesn't have to be funny to be like.
Yeah, I was saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we don't personally have to find it funny for it to be parody.
I found there to be multiple moments that were funny. My problem with it was that there were times where, so like the whole, okay, so here's where it exists as a parody, right? The game is technically a silent protag game, you know? Right? Technically, the character never really says anything.
Which they point out very clearly the first moment you start the game, because you create your character and never see your character again.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a like a satirical commentary on the fact that like a lot of these games have custom like creation, create a character and
like,
then you
honestly,
never look at them again.
Look at like Dark Souls. You make your character, people will spend hours making a character in Dark Souls, and then you just change your armor and you never look at yourself again.
Or even funnier is you spend hours making a character, you die once and you become a fucking beef jerky man.
True, yeah.
True.
You know, so like I agree. I think that's what it's like making fun of. It's also making fun of the silent protagonist, because technically you're not a silent protagonist.
You just don't talk.
No. The commentary comes through your guns.
Yeah, the guns talk to you and they ask you questions and they comment that you don't speak. Yeah.
Yeah, they comment on everything for you. So you're not. It's technically not a silent protagonist game, but it also is.
It's very weird.
I think there's a lot of really good satire and parody in High on Life. There's some really funny moments, but then the problem is they really went for quantity over quality. That was my problem with High on Life.
Just throw enough shit at the wall type thing.
Yeah.
A game with a high budget and like a lot of marketing. That's my definition for AAA.
Yeah.
Tar Hill.
So what is anything AA? Like what did AAA stand for? Like what do the 3 A's stand for? I have no clue.
I think I've been on this discussion before and we couldn't find out. There's no real definition for it. It just means high budget.
Actual ass art.
Oh, I may be into AAA.
Yeah, you're definitely a AAA gamer.
Me too.
I have no ass. I am a single A gamer.
He just has the ass.
I
So the more ass
googled
you
what
have,
is
the more ass you put
AA
in it.
marketing, and it says AA games are mid-market video games that typically have some type of professional development, though typically outside the large first-party studios.
So Mass Effect
I would say
Andromeda
anything
wants to
that's
be
Probably
like-
be AA then.
Oh, bro, don't remind me. Is Andromeda a parody?
I was gonna, yeah, it's a parody of making a working game. I was gonna say something like, God, I'm gonna try to make sure I say the right one. Outer Worlds, not Outer Wilds, Outer Worlds.
Yeah.
Would be a AA game because it is made by a studio of like decent renown, being Obsidian Entertainment. Obsidian? Yeah, Obsidian. Yeah. I always get confused because Obsidian Entertainment made Oblivion. I always got to call them Oblivion Entertainment, but yeah, Obsidian Entertainment made it, and they didn't have a big budget behind them, but they're obviously a big budget studio that many AAA developers, AAA producers will hire for a game.
So like Redfall is another good example. More recently,
Yeah.
of like probably a AA game.
No, but Redfall was had Bethesda behind them. So
Yeah, I
that
feel like
was
Redfall was a AAA game. I feel like Arcane is very high
they use,
budget,
like-
very high marketing.
But they specifically said they used like the B and the C squad from Arcane, and like the last people from the A squad that worked on a game worked on.
Did they actually
that's
though,
Or is that
or
just
was
an
that just them being
explanation? Yeah.
cheap?
I'd like to think that
I
in
can
my
see.
brain, I want game developers to be on our side, and they're being
Yeah.
pushed around by
I agree.
big game.
Big game.
So in
Big
my
pharma.
head, when the developers speak, I listen. When the publishers speak, I don't.
Yep.
So that's kind of.
Okay.
And the developers said, "Hey guys, the last game that our main A studio worked on was Deathloop. We're working on another project right now. Redfall was made by our C and B squad.
I
And that's
could
what
see
happened with
them.
Fallout 76 too.
I could see them taking the money from Bethesda and then giving it to one of their lower dev teams. I don't think that necessarily means it was a mid-budget game. I would say it's probably still a high-budget game, just probably
Yeah, probably.
We could
yeah,
probably
probably
look
not
it up,
made by the
like,
most
what the
gifted
budget
developers
is,
of
right?
the
Yeah.
squad.
And probably not given
the
enough
fact
time.
it was
either.
being marketed out the arse by Bethesda was enough, in my opinion, to make it AAA.
So what is it? Okay, slightly off topic. Still
Hold
on
on.
parody.
I have very on topic before we leave that. You guys
Sure.
have probably heard of Quadruple A. There have been a couple game dev companies that
I have
called
heard that
themselves
buzzword.
Quadruple A. It never really,
Sure.
it hasn't like taken off yet, but like Ubisoft considered Beyond Good and Evil 2 a Quadruple A title is what they were boasting about a few years ago. So we've heard that kind of in
is it then?
passing. You can infer what that means, whatever you want, but I've never heard of Triple I. On this wiki
does the A
page,
stand
it
for?
says AA, AAA, AAA plus, Quadruple A, and Triple I. And Triple I is independently funded indie games that meet an analogous quality level in their field, or i.e. indie games that have a relatively high budget, scope, and ambition, and often the development team includes staff who have experience working on AAA titles, examples being Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice and The Witness.
Does
That's pretty
Stars
cool.
doesn't count?
Yeah,
Hmm?
absolutely.
Probably.
100%.
I think it's just not out yet, so that wouldn't be on the list. But
That's
I've never
that's
heard of
Quadruple
Triple
I.
I. That's kind of cool.
Quadruple I.
Quadruple I.
Anyway,
like that.
Well, we
I
use
think
quadruple for all the
Ubisoft
games that
claiming
have been
anything
called
they
that we haven't
make
seen yet.
is high product, is high value, is the biggest fucking laugh that they've ever made. I'm pretty sure that comment was satire.
Rocket League is
Fucking
Triple A.
morons. Hey, Ubisoft, if you're listening, shut up, idiots.
Ubisoft's not listening. They don't listen
no,
to
no,
the,
no.
the
They're
loudest
big
voices in the
listeners.
industry.
They're
Ubisoft in the
definitely
corner.
on Spotify.
There are
Fucking
Spotify
Ubisoft.
viewers for sure.
There are Spotify viewers for sure.
So,
Jesus Christ.
sorry, what were you about to say that was off topic, Airman? I wanted to say that before we moved on from the whole AAA discussion.
Right. So what is it? Again, it's like kind of on the same, it's kind of on the same path of parody, where it's like, why do AAA companies or AA companies, like big budget companies, think that just saying, I don't even know what to call it, like extremely liberal things make it seem like edgy or funny or anything other than just what's being said? Because I felt that in Redfall, I felt that in Borderlands 3, God forsake. I
Do
felt
you
that
have
in
an
so many
example?
games. Yeah, I just gave two. Like,
Well, I
literally
mean,
just,
like,
lots
of a
things I
line of
said.
dialogue. Sorry, like,
Yeah, well, like, I don't know. They'll just say like, you know, hip, cool things. You know, like things that maybe like the kids would say.
Like yeet.
Like yeah. I guess literally like that. Like they'd like just try to say like TikTok slang or something like that. And I've seen that forever. Like in every game that comes out, that's like like they try to sneak that in there.
I
And,
think it's
why
just
is that
bad
so
writing.
common?
It's either bad writing or it's just one of those situations of you're out of that age demographic now. Like you're just not the target audience anymore. We're
Well-
old men now.
But I just said I just see that forever. Like I've always seen weird, injected words like that almost feel like parody of itself.
It's old people trying to connect to the young people for sure.
Like the XD so random type writing.
Yeah, that in my brain, that's what all the dialogue in Borderlands was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Tiny Tina was XD so random the
So
character.
for people currently our age, when Borderlands came out, they thought, "What is all this cringe shit?" I feel like now that we are that age, seeing all these games come out feels that way to us. But I mean, I don't know if you've always felt that way about every line of dialogue in games for a while back. You were just one of the people that noticed clearly the people writing this are detached and don't fully understand what they're trying to say. They're just trying to connect with people. They're just trying to make it sound like, something that the kids will understand. That's how it's felt to me.
Yeah, I can see that perspective. Like the reason I brought it up is because it's always felt like parody to me. Like it's always felt like we're trying to make this character relatable to like the kids. So let's make them way too like hip and cool, yo.
I don't think that's necessarily parody. I think that's just bad
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah, I think that's
Agreed.
unintentionally bad.
Because I think the thing
to
is
be
that
fair, in the
they're
throes of Borderlands, back in the day, like Borderlands 2 was a huge hit because of that dot writing. I think it's
Well,
nowadays
Anthem
it
Jack
comes
is
off
well
as
written,
cringy.
for sure, but there's a lot of cringe in that game. Like even from back then. Like Tiny Tina, that is the cringiest character probably ever put in a video game.
Yeah, but man, when I remember when that dropped, like it was like Tiny Tina was loved.
Really?
I saw a lot of people playing that Tiny
Uh-huh.
Tina's Wonderland game, but man, every time I, like, all my friends, which not all of them, but anytime I saw friends streaming and I would go in and be like, hey, how's this game? And I couldn't stick around for like 5 minutes because I'd be so annoyed by non-stop NPCs talking.
yeah.
Talking about nonsense. I think that's the important thing, the distinction
Yes,
for
it's
me
nothing
is
of
like,
substance, right?
yeah, if you're talking about something that's important, that's cool. I feel like part of the humor is that they just, it's same thing with High on Life that they do in Borderlands sometimes, where a character just rambles to fill space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you covered this, but would Fortnite count as parody? Well, Fortnite was originally created to just be a, I don't think they intended on it being a parody, no, so I would say no.
Yeah.
They just intended to be a competitor.
Games
in
that
space.
are parody, like Stanley Parable, Borderlands, not for the writing but for the looter shooterism, like Goat Simulator, things that have a clear message. They're making fun of an aspect of game design. I think those kind of things are where parody sits, right? Where you're making fun of an aspect of gaming culture.
The characters aren't parody, they are just characters from other pieces of media. I don't think that the characters being in the game are making fun of or making humor out of like the characters existing. They're just the characters existing because people will buy them.
So
Yeah.
would Totally Accurate Battlegrounds be a parody of
Yes.
Fortnite?
Sims.
Or
It would be a
No,
parody of
it's
Sims.
battle royales in general.
Yeah, battle royales in general. Oh, right, the battle royale version. I was thinking of
no, not tabs.
tabs.
You're
I was
thinking
thinking of tabs. Yeah.
Totally Accurate Battlegrounds. Just
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, that's fair.
I think. How do you guys feel about like the original Tony Hawk games for like the PS2, like the old NeverSoft games?
Yeah.
Because in my brain,
That
those
was
were the
PS1.
original
Yeah, it was
parody
PS1,
games.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was PS1. In my brain, that's what I go back to when I think of like these games were. Actually, maybe it's not parody now that we've redefined it in my head. Those
No,
were
I
like
don't
the
think
games that I
so.
thought were just very funny all the time. And it was like, it felt like skating was only half the point, I guess.
Yeah, but I think that was just them trying to connect, like, I think this is something that a lot of games did, where they like made those like sports games ridiculous. But I felt like this is more to entertain a more casual audience, more so than like draw parodies on the sports industry. Not to say that it didn't sometimes.
Well, I don't think it's trying to satirize the sports industry by pointing out anything
No.
wrong with it or anything, but I do think that it exagerates like grinding on spaceships and running downhill on a skateboard away from bulls and shit like that.
Or like jumping through like the video rooms.
I
with,
feel like it was
to break
definitely
glass.
exaggerative for the sake of humor. Does Jamie having headphone problems?
It kind of just feels like it has like Rob Dyrdek energy, you know, or like it's just meant to be like skater bro, and it's also a video game, so like let's go to the extreme. Type
I don't
thing.
think it meant to be funny. I think it was meant to be entertaining. I think it was meant to be like people be like, "Oh, I didn't realize you could jump through this thing. Oh, this is really cool." Or like, "I could go to space or do this ridiculous thing. This is awesome." And like, there was a lot of stuff like that. So
you
like,
think it was exaggerative for the sake of just awesome fun, as opposed to exaggerative
Like-
for the sake of humor?
retention? Yeah, I guess. I think it's like, because I don't think there's anything necessarily comical about it, at least in my opinion. But that's also subjective. I could just be me being like, not finding it was funny. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a lot of like fun. The part of the humor was just like playing with other friends and doing stupid shit on purpose.
That's fair.
But
I always found humor in it because of the ridiculousness, I guess. I feel like there is a generation of loud equals funny. I think I was in a generation of ridiculous equals funny, to where I will laugh at something because of how little sense it makes, and that is dumb to other people. So for me, grinding all of the skulls off of the tombstones in a graveyard, and then a portal to hell opening in the middle of the city, and Ring of Fire by Johnny Cash starts playing. And then you ramp into hell and grind on Satan's horns and kill Hitler. I was like,
what is this?
That's a real example. That is actually a real example in a Tony Hawk game.
I agree with you. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, I guess it is like exaggerated with the intent of being comical or entertaining. If we're willing to like stretch it to that, because I feel like, to me, it was all about like retention span, right? Like,
I mean, it could be either way.
For a long time, but I think that still fills that slot, right? Of whether or not it's funny, it's enjoyable, and I think that all the sports games, like Big's the League, where you would literally just get a pitch like a ball, and you hit it so hard that it explodes like the scoreboard sign, and like blows its back out and just goes all the way through it.
That's fun.
It's just insane stuff like that. That I think I agree with you. The more I think about it,
I feel like Tony Hawk felt less like a skating game. Like, obviously the skating mechanics were there. You could skate around and do tricks, but that alone wasn't fun. So they made a laundry list of dumb shit for you to do just to force you to engage with the game in an interesting way. And I think that is like, again, not in every parody game like these, but I feel like that is also a similar formula that a lot of these parody games take. Is they made fun, wacky controls. Here's a game that functions. Now do these things. Like Goat Sim is a good example of there's just a list of shit to do. Not necessarily a list, but random unattached shit all over the place. Octodad is just bad controls. Now here's a list of tasks to do. Untitled Goose Game is silly, simple controls. Here's a list of tasks to do and secret shit to find. Like, I feel like Tony Hawk founded that formula in my brain, and there's like a ton of games following it still. Whether or not Tony Hawk was parody, I feel like a lot of these parody games follow that formula.
Yeah, see, I still think like, yeah, I wouldn't count. See, for me, I wouldn't count it, right? I feel like it needs to be imitating something for the point of, oh man, I don't know. I understand parody is like a piece of like work that imitates something else for comedic effect or ridicule, right?
So which game are you trying to say is not parody now, then?
No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying I guess in that sense is right, but
it feels like it's not the like so.
It's very much like in the light.
There's like a mindset
area,
for when you go. It's like a little bit more nuanced because it feels like by the technical definition we laid out, yes, it fits the definition, but it's like, is it really like feel like it's meant to be a parody game? Like, is anything about Tony Hawk or any of the like? I guess I don't know.
To me, it felt like it was just meant to be a wacky, silly, dumb game that exaggerates skateboard culture. Which skateboard culture was already pretty exaggerative, to be fair. So
yeah,
in an awesome way.
In an awesome way, yeah.
Parody is very hard to define.
It's so hard. That's why I tried to pull us off that definition at the beginning.
Yeah, I think this is like I think it just gets for me a little bit more nuanced and like specific when you get to sports games, because it's like, how paradoxical can you be of a thing that has such rigid rules and like regulations and all these things that are like, it feels hard to break away with an intent.
Go
for it. Yeah, go for it.
NBA 2K, not parody. NBA Street,
no, it's the opposite.
Parody.
Yeah.
Street is the one I'm thinking of, where you can like get power-ups and do super slam dunks over people's head. Yeah. Well, so that's clearly a parody sport game.
That's just arcade. I don't know if that's parody. I think that's just an arcade setting.
That's why I think it's a little bit different when it comes to sports, especially sports games.
Same with Tony Hawk's. That's kind of how I took it. Was like, it's just like this. It's an arcade setting.
I don't think that it's satire, because I don't believe that it has a point to make, but I do believe that it is exaggerating elements of that sport for the sake of humor, or I guess it might just be more entertainment this time.
Because like you could say sports anime are parody because they go like to the extreme. Like they hit the baseball and like there's a huge white streak and it flies out. Like I feel like that's just like the extreme version of it. And I feel like going back to what you said, Devi, I think it's intention with there, because like if they're just trying to make like a fun game.
Yeah, I guess. I guess that is parody. I think satire is like more.
That's fun equal parody. That's interesting.
Because it's like, well, because it's like when you take parody in like all these other aspects of like movies and like art and all this stuff, it feels a lot more intentional. But with games, there's always like a inherent like entertainment value for fun.
Yeah, you have to make the game fun. So
it feels like a lot of like the comedic effect and exaggeration that we think of when we think of parodies is just naturally in almost every aspect of video games as a whole. Right. Although there are some exceptions, like I think that recently it's like gotten more into like the realism of like trying to make video games as real as possible, which whether you like that or hate it or whatever. It's
starting to feel like parody is one of the few genres that cannot be decided by the watchers.
Yeah.
Or by the players. It's sort of like Thriller. Like you can make a horror game, you can make a horror movie, but to make a thriller movie, you have to advertise it as a thriller. Like no one's going to be like, it's a thriller. Like people want to say like, it's a horror movie, and then it's defined as a thriller. And it feels like parody games are comedy games, just games that are meant to be funny or meant to be goofy. And then the studios decide if they're parody or not.
Well,
or like
what about,
whoever's releasing them decide.
I'm gonna like on that point though. What about something like Seven? Seven's not a horror movie, but it's definitely a thriller.
Once we're into movie genres, I'm lost here.
No. I just want to ask this one specific thing.
Yeah. I got no input.
What was it? Repeat it.
Seven, the movie Seven, could not be interpreted as a horror movie.
Then let's say scary. Let's just fucking
scary.
Let's just blow it the fuck up. It's a scary movie, and it's considered a thriller in that category. Then this is considered a comedy category, and you have to be very purposeful in your advertisement or very purposeful in informing people when they're buying the game that it is a parody. Because it feels like none of these we can decide. Like none of us can be like, actually, that's a parody game. Because it's like,
yeah,
if it's not intentional, if the developers don't strictly say it is, then we can't decide it externally.
Yeah.
South Park, Stick of Truth, I don't believe was marketed as a satire game, but it is. Not satire, parody game, but it is.
I don't remember how like Stanley Parable was marketed.
But yeah, definitely not with South Park. That was just, it was given to us as a South Park RPG.
Yeah, okay. But you don't think South Park by itself is inherently going to have
South Park's a modifier word though, right? Like,
yeah.
I also want to say, it's hard to say that they released that without the intention of it being a parody, given that the name, like Sneak said in chat, the name itself is The Fractured Butthole. Like, the name of the game is like...
But the Stick of Truth. That doesn't live up to
the Stick of Truth doesn't invoke humor in the name itself.
South Park
well, the Stick of Truth, I mean, I guess you could go really, really deep into that, being like they picked a stick because it's a pointless, useless thing, but it's now important, and there's too many layers.
I see kind of what Jamie's going for, because I think he's talking about like, is the marketing itself the intent that is shown? And if it's not marketed in a certain way, then it's like.
But didn't we talk about earlier how South Park isn't really like South Park is South Park. Like it's its own separate.
Like defines parody almost.
I get you, but there's been South Park games before that weren't satire. That all being they were bad, but there was the one on the N64. That was trash.
I didn't even know there was one.
It wasn't. It wasn't released parody.
Well, then it doesn't really matter, I guess, because like I feel like the whole point of like okay, so Stanley Parable, as you said, let's go back to that one, because that's more of an argument, because South Park is that's like saying Family Guy fighter. It's like inherently it's going to have, it's Family Guy. You already have it. People know Family Guy. It's not like it's some weird obscure like nickels and dimes type thing.
Yeah.
So for Stanley Parable, actually Devi, would you mind doing me a favor and pull up the Steam page for Stanley Parable?
Sure.
And can you read the description?
Yeah.
Because I feel like because even if it's not marketed strictly, or even if the trailers don't strictly give it away, I feel like if it's a parody game or not, the people who are releasing it decided above all.
Here's the description on Steam. The Stanley Parable is a first-person exploration game. You will play as Stanley, and you will not play as Stanley. You will follow a story. You will not follow a story. You will have a choice. You will have no choice. The game will end. The game will never end.
That seems like that. It's very Stanley
Did
Parable.
that help you with your point?
Yeah.
It just seems like all the people who are releasing parody games kind of know what they're doing. Like they kind of like hide the fact that they're parody. Like everyone's in on the joke. It feels like the same thing for Doki Doki Literature Club, where like when you first click on it, it's like, you know, join the Doki Doki Literature Club as you, and it, like the trailer for it's like all bubbly and whatnot, and then like in the tags it's like horror. And you're like, what? Like where that's super intriguing, and then you jump into it, and then it's a parody of itself. Like I feel like the developers have to, because of course intention, they have to be in on the joke, and you can't really have. No one can make a parody game by accident. Obviously, that's like what we discussed, and no one can decide something's a parody game after it's been released as not a parody game. Like even you said earlier, like what I would consider as parody writing, you were just like, oh, that's just bad writing. It's like even if the literal writers intended it to be parody of itself, it doesn't matter because they didn't say it. So we can't decide afterwards. So I think parody games are weird because no one can decide them except for the developers, and no other genre is really like that.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you.
It's
Trying to
funny that Stanley Parable. I don't know if this is a tag on Steam, but doesn't have a parody tag at all.
Ooh, let me check.
Oh, is parody a tag? That's a good question.
I think
Yeah,
it
so
is.
sad,
I think I looked
basically.
earlier. I think that was the problem. Is that I was about to say that can't people use tags like indiscriminately? Like it doesn't have to be the
Yeah.
developer.
So it doesn't
So,
have
yeah,
parody, but it does have satire.
So satire
It does
is
have
the-
parody.
is
I
the
literally used it
game-
earlier.
Oh, I'm looking at it
Yeah,
right
because
now.
I believe Stanley Parable is
Hold on.
satire.
I will share my screen with you.
Sure.
Yeah, we talked about that, and
they
those
they
things are
even
basically
re-released the
interchangeable.
game as Stanley Parable, the
That's
Ultra
wrong.
Deluxe
Look
version,
at that.
to make fun of meaningless remakes.
Yeah, true.
Narrow by tag parody.
Right, they added a DLC, and in this DLC, there's a jump button. You're only allowed to jump like 47 times,
Damn,
and
so it's-
you've used up your predefined jump button usage.
Wait. Oh, in the Super Deluxe Edition, you mean? Because in the regular version, there's an achievement for trying to jump that just says, "Yeah, we didn't put that in the
Satire
game."
doesn't mean parody. We know it doesn't. There's a difference.
Yeah,
That's what we
they're
talked
like
about for ages.
they're like not the same, but when it comes to like
It's-
tags in games, they seem relatively interchangeable because they both attract a similar audience.
Yeah.
At least that's what I'm looking at on Steam. Like, there's a lot of overlap between the satire and parody games, and like, that doesn't really bother me too much as long as I, have an informed decision before I purchase something, and I don't just nonchalantly click on anything that has either the satire or parody.
Yeah,
tag.
for sure.
Yeah. That's why you should handle all game choices,
Very,
like,
yeah.
Or just
clearly.
all purchases in life. Like, just don't be a
Yeah.
dumbass.
Yeah,
Oh,
don't
man,
just
the
buy things
looker-
because it's labeled one thing.
I know we've already talked about that.
Looker's so
Did
good.
I bring up Untitled Goose Game?
Oh no, that's a good one.
Oh, true. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
What was
Yeah,
you
that
consider like
is
a
a good one.
collectathon, like an adventure game? I
So
don't really know what to call
I
that.
think Untitled Goose
Puzzle
Game.
game?
I
A little shit game.
I feel like that follows in my brain the very similar like. So the Tony Hawk games had a very clear point to them. You were a skateboarder, get the points, do the little side quests. But there was like a little side objective in all the Tony Hawk games of find all the weird hidden secret shit. I feel like that was like the hidden game, kind of like how The Witness has the environmental puzzles that are kind of like the real game tucked away behind, I think that Untitled Goose
I love
Game
that.
is just like Tony Hawk. It just doesn't have a skateboard in it. You're just a goose and you have to interact with the world in a way that the little side quests tell you to. It makes jokes the whole time that you're doing it. It felt like the same game to me. It's just like these small menial tasks that just force you to interact with the game and the environment.
it feels like Goat Sim, where it's just like a silly little guy game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, there's a lot of games where you're just a silly little guy, and I like games like that.
It's a game
And I
called
definitely
Life,
think they're
baby.
parody.
I don't know if I consider Untitled Goose Game parody is the hard part for me. Because I don't think that it intentionally parodizes anything other than the fact that people make jokes about geese being like a problem animal.
Right.
Yeah.
I think if I had to put it in one category, it'd probably be puzzle game.
Yeah.
Because
it's a
you
puzzle
can't
game.
progress into it, like without solving the
An
necessary
open-ended
puzzles.
puzzle game.
Yeah, an open-ended puzzle game where like there's side objectives.
But
Would
I
it be
guess
parody?
it
I
is
don't know, but it is a silly
exaggerative
little guy.
in the
So,
antics
yeah.
that a goose gets up to, but
Yeah, true.
for the sake of humor.
So, well, I mean, just like I wouldn't say it's necessarily a satire game. So, like, like parody, right? We've defined it as kind of like the using of an art form to imitate another art form for comedic or ridicule, for comic effect or ridicule, right?
So
I don't really know what Goose Game's trying to imitate.
I don't think we pigeonholed it to having to imitate an art form, right? Did we?
Well, no,
Well,
not
I mean,
necessarily,
that's what parody
but it
is.
is
Like if you're making a
mimicking
parody
something.
song.
Yeah,
not
if you make
necessarily
a
an art
parody
form,
song,
but-
you don't just make a brand new song and go, it's a parody. Why? Because it's funny.
Yeah.
I guess it's like Goose
Yeah, that's
Antics. If
Yeah,
it's like a
Goose
parody or
Antics,
anything,
but
it's just
yeah.
like
Which, how
goofy
can you
little
Well,
guy
really
wouldn't
game.
that
parody
make it more
Goose Antics?
satire, which is like picking
True.
up on vices and follies and using those to ridicule it, right? I guess it's more of a satirical game. The idea is that like, hey, you know those goose that have fucked with you for ages? Now you gotta be the goose. You gotta fuck with people. So I guess that's where the line kind of becomes, that's where the line is drawn, right? Where it's like, is it using the art form to make fun of another thing within the art forms, like a popular song, you would parody it like Weird Al would? Or are you making a song like fucking Blink 182's I Wanna Fuck a Dog in the Ass, putting it on a full release album and being like, no, it's funny because it's like making fun of something that nobody would sing about.
It reminds me
That's a
of the
legitimate
Bloodhound
song.
Gang.
There's a song they have called I Wanna Fuck a Dog in the
That's
Ass.
crazy.
And it really
That's crazy
reminds
that
me
was
of
just
the
released.
Bloodhound Gang's normal music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, that's a satirical song, whereas a parodistic song would be something
Weird
like
Al.
I'm Fat by Weird Al.
Yeah.
So in that
okay.
sense, Stanley Parable is satire, whereas Stick of Truth is parody. Because it's making fun of like fantasy-based RPGs by
Yeah.
being a fantasy-based RPG
Yeah. Okay.
and overusing its tropes to excessive effect.
Not to bring it up every podcast, but this makes me want the Emu War parody game even more.
I'm fine with making the Emu War discussion a common recurrence for the podcast, actually.
I want the
I
Emu
mean,
War parody. Like,
What was the thing before that? The recurring thing was foreskin or whatever.
No,
right?
that's
That I
just
talked about it.
GTFO. That's just
That's
when we played
GTFO.
GT. We
No,
put
that
that
is
game
GTFO. I always
behind
think it's
us.
on the podcast.
before that,
The
it was
previous
hating
one
Sonic.
was somehow bringing up Sonic.
Yeah, Sonic.
That's just, it's literally just because Liz always hops in chat and just roasts me for it without like any
Yeah,
provocation
Liz
at
wasn't
all.
here today to roast you for Sonic, so we gotta
Thank
do it.
God, I got a
Yeah,
break.
so
We need to get the developers of
who's
Wii Shop
googling all the
3
feet pics?
on the Emu
Well,
War
that's still
game.
me, but that's besides the point.
I had two more games that I wanted to just bring up half-assedly. One of them being
Shoot.
Octodad. I don't know if
Yeah.
we all
Oh.
remember Octodad, where
Yeah,
it's
that's a
similar to
lovely
like
game.
Quap.
Good
It
one.
was just very intentionally bad controls. Being an octopus who's trying to disguise, like fit in and blend in with normal human society. Very silly, very goofy.
Again, it feels like a goofy little guy game.
It does feel like a goofy little guy game.
I don't know if it's what is it a parody of? Because I'm down for that being a parody game, but I'm trying to figure out what it would be a
The
parody of.
closest thing you can do is just a mechanical thing of like,
Yeah,
block,
I feel like
anything
the
that makes
mechanics.
the movement difficult.
So goofy mechanics. But you said wait earlier. What was your opinion on I Am Bread?
I haven't played I Am Bread, but this is definitely in the same category as
For
I Am
sure,
Bread
it's
and
like-
Surgeon Simulator.
Well, isn't the whole point of it to make fun of simulator games? I thought that was the whole point of those games, like grass simulator
Yeah.
and shit.
Yeah,
I don't know if
parodies of
Octodad is meant to be a
well,
sim
no, I don't
like
think
that or a
Octodad, but I
parody
am
of
bread.
it.
That's what I think is what he's talking about.
Oh yeah.
No, I am bread and
Where-
shit. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I am
Where
fish.
it's
I am
like-
bread.
That one makes a lot more sense as a parody of those sim games than Octodad.
Same with
for
like
sure.
Surgeon Simulator. I was trying to think of how to like bring Surgeon Simulator into this because I felt like it did exist in that medium, and I think it does. And I think it's just parodying other simulator games, right? Where other simulator games you have to be very careful and precise. This one is bash open rib cage, rip out all internal organs, jam heart in, 2 fists up.
Yep.
That was almost word for word what I said earlier.
Yeah, I think
Yep.
so.
Well, that's why I use those words because you said them.
No, I don't.
Last
I
silly
think
game, I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I read.
No, I was just gonna like just continue what you were saying and say like parody games and goofy little guy games can be confusing sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Last silly game that I wanted to bring up, Chunk might be the only one that remembers this, but there was a game that I got recommended by a viewer a while back called Barn Finders.
Barbender's good.
Have you heard of that,
I remember that
Airband
game.
or Jamie?
I remember watching you play that game.
Eh.
Jamie, it might be something worth it for you to look into for a silly stream one day. I
I
think you
think-
might have
I
fun
think
with
you
it.
would
Jamie
love
would
that
like
for
it.
stream,
Yeah, it's
for
just like
sure.
Weed Cup 3 energy.
The whole point
What
of
is
it
it?
is it's a parody of like those the storage shows, like Storage Wars, where people will bid
Oh,
on
yeah.
and
It's like the gold. No, I won't say gold diggers. That's not right. What is the thing where they go and they literally like try to find like good objects to,
American
like put up
Pickers?
for auction? American Pickers. Thank you.
You were close with gold.
So the whole loop of the game, I'm gonna spoil a teensy bit that doesn't really matter because story isn't really important in this game. You run a shop and you sell old antiques and shit that you have found. So the general loop is you go to your computer, you get an email that says, hey, I found this old barn for sale. You should come check it out and pick it clean. So now you go to this barn and you like solve little puzzles to like get into specific rooms and things. Like there will be a ladder that's fallen in front of the door and you have to find some way to move that to get in there. That's kind of minor, but the whole point of the game is finding junk around these locations, which tend to be very wacky locations, and you put it in your truck and you take it back to repair it and sell it later. That progresses the game.
Yeah.
So that's the core gameplay, but the real game is that the junk you're finding tends to be like blow up dolls and like demonic necro books
Like
and
the Necronomicon.
yeah, like the
from Little Dead.
Necronomicon, and you'll find like a bottle of whiskey that you drink from it and you pass out and have like a fever dream about an alien invasion and shit, and it's just like one of those really dumb, wacky, off the wall walk around this environment
It
and
does sound
interact
fun.
with
What's
this.
it called?
It's called Barn
Barn
Finders.
Finders.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you would like it. Yeah.
Genuinely.
Does my memory serve me correct where it had Twitch integration as well?
No.
No, what am I thinking
Yeah, he's thinking of Wait Shop 3, the goat.
of? No. Is that a parody game of like
Of
shop
Weed.
game?
Sims?
Yeah, 100% it is.
How would we
Very
wrap this
dank.
conversation up? How do we even conclude everything we discussed? Because I feel like most
What's
of what
everyone's
we
favorite?
discussed.
What's everyone's favorite parody game? After having talked about this,
Mm.
That's a good question because
mine's
now
Hitman.
that-
Yeah,
Hitman's a
I'm
good one.
kind of on Hitman just because it's a good game, but I'm also like, as a parody game, I feel like the Stanley Parable like really sets a bar.
The Stanley Parable is satire, not parody.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm still
as far
gonna
as
chill with,
comedy games,
I'm still gonna chill with the Looker because I think that
Fair.
it sets a good precedent for what I want, and that's I want parody games of games because genres have been done, right? Like they've
Mhm.
done whole categories of like this is a looter shooter parody or this is a horror parody. But I love the fact that someone enjoyed The Witness, they liked it so much that they made an entire game to just parody it, and I want more
Yeah.
of that. I want someone to take one specific game and then parody it out, and I want that for 1,000 games in my life because it's way
I'd
funnier
probably
that way.
say Saints Row for me. Would be my choice.
Chad, what about you? What's your parody game or comedy game if you can't discern between parody and satire like myself struggling to still? But
I have a
It
question
is
for you guys.
difficult.
it's a very nuanced discussion, clearly.
What if a developer or a publisher released a parody game? Which developer or publisher would you trust the most with that release? For me, I'm chilling on Devolver.
Well, Devolver's done so
I think
many
they'd
already.
nail it if they released. Like,
Well, they've already done a good one, which is it's a banana game, Pablo.
My friend Pedro.
My friend Pedro, that's the one. That's
I
the
want
one.
to say Obsidian.
Interesting.
I knew he was gonna.
I like their style of humor. It's not. I think Obsidian has a really good way of being very funny without making it just the whole experience. Like all the Spacer's Choice shit doesn't really matter that much aside from like 2 side quests, but every single interaction I had with any NPC that was related to Spacer's Choice in the Outer Worlds was hysterical, and I loved it. Like the guy who nonstop complains about wearing the big moon headpiece.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because one of my favorites was made by Devolver, which was I'm blanking on its name. You play as like a giant spaghetti monster. Carrion.
Oh, I think that's re-releasing on PS5 now. I think I just saw a trailer for it the other
Carrion's
night.
dope. It's like an RPG, but it's like an RPG Metroidvania style game.
Interesting.
It's
Do you guys
pretty
remember the
fucking
flying
funny.
spaghetti monster meme from a few years ago? Where like the
Yeah.
religion.
Did that leave?
Oh, that wasn't just from a few years ago. That's been around for.
Yeah,
I like
think it's,
forgot about that until just now.
Yeah.
Pastafarianism, I think is what it is.
Yeah,
Pastafarianism,
Pastafarian.
Yeah, Pastafarians are what they called.
What do we call? I still worship the Helix fossil. Is that
From
old?
Pokemon?
Is that what we call that? Old or?
Well, if you're asking, are you old? Then we could just.
Yeah,
answer
no,
that.
I just
No, don't do that to him. He doesn't deserve that.
no
Grandpa
joke.
Debbie.
I had hit a point like 2 weeks ago where I was waking up in the morning. I was like, I think I'm ready to accept that I'm old now. I think I'm finally
Yeah.
ready to just grow up and be like, yep, I am old. And then I
That's
went and
me
shaved
today,
my
man.
face and got like 5 years back and was like, oh, never mind, I'm good.
I'm sitting there, bro. I feel you. I woke up yesterday and I was like, oh, my entire body hurts. And because I slept slightly weird.
I have to sit in the middle of movie theaters. I can't sit in the back anymore because of my eyes.
Damn.
That's the only reason.
Every time I
feel-
walk, my knee clicks. So I just feel like
I
I'm probably
hate
old.
being old, dude. We're so old,
We're
man.
so
What's
old.
happening?
I'm only 26. It's not supposed to be like this
I'm
yet.
gonna
I'm
get my
not gonna get to 30
shotgun.
before it starts hitting.
Gonna
The
get my
internet
rocking
makes us
chair.
feel older, I feel like, because we're
for
in
sure.
direct contact
for
with.
sure.
Yeah. I
Okay,
mean,
you wanna know how old I am? I
39.
sit in my front yard. And I'm smoking cigarettes, and young people walk by, and I get annoyed by them.
That's a whole new level of old.
Hogan.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That's like
Oh,
retirement. Your retirement age. It may be time to like hang up the.
Get
streaming
off
code.
my lawn!
He just throws rocks or whatever he has nearby, like at him. Just
Man, I'm old, bro.
Well, I think as
that
weird
joke.
as it feels to do so this early into a discussion, air quotes early, we usually do like a 4-hour podcast. We stayed pretty on topic pretty much the whole time. So I guess, chat, if you have feedback on how this podcast felt in comparison to other podcasts, let us know, because I'm not opposed to sticking with the 4-hour thing. I've just gotten feedback that it's kind of difficult to commit to it if you're like sitting down watching it not live. So this is kind of the reason for making that change. So if you have other feedback like that, obviously we're listening. You guys have a raid
I'm
target
not.
today? Oh, Chunk isn't listening. I'm sorry. True, I guess I am the only one listening. So DM me your feedback.
Isn't
Don't ever DM me.
isn't the default when you're like supposed to raid members of Otherworld? Is anyone in Otherworld streaming?
Oh yeah, Baldy is still alive. Okay. I'm used to them
Baldy's AFK
sorting
right
by
now.
view count, not by relevance. Oh, he's not even there.
yeah, he's AFK right now.
L plus ratio plus whatever you
Plus
else you want.
AFK.
Let me see.
Code breaker.
I don't think anyone else from Otherworld's live right now. We do have 4 of the members here right now, so I guess
True,
that
yeah.
would be
4 of
one
us
them.
are on this podcast. We have like 3 that are on break,
Oh, let's
extended
raid
break.
Prince Debbie.
Let's raid Prince
Debbie's
Debbie. He's doing an uncapped subathon next week, I heard, so we can raid him next week.
Let's talk more about that.
How mentally prepped are you for that, bud?
I am at the point right now where I'm like, I don't have OBS ready. I'm gonna be doing a couple of things live. I just know it. There's no amount of preparation that will have me actually ready when I go live.
Oh,
but
for sure.
also, every day between now and the beginning of the subathon feels fake and not
Oh, he's
real,
back, by the way.
and that it doesn't matter. And I'm just waiting on the subathon to start.
Oh, Drew's on streaming. Okay, so
Baldy's back.
Yeah, Baldi's back as well.
a little controversial. You know pronouns?
Oh god.
Yes.
Every
Should we
time
end
I
stream
see-
before this, or?
No, it's fine. Every time I see,
Dude, I like all of us are just me, Jamie, and Dibby are all just like,
every time I see he, him, I think about the meme where it's like,
I'll
like,
never
I'm
be
him.
Bro,
Oh,
I
was
remember.
thinking like, but I'm not him.
Like, no, I'm he, him. Like, like it's me.
I
Every
miss
time
being
see it,
able to make my stupid pronoun joke. When I was a VTuber and I was like a demon prince, I would tell
Yeah.
everyone my pronouns were his/highness, and I miss being able to make that joke all the time.
You can still do that. You just got to be
True, I gotta be more royal.
very different.
You know, you could make that one about the joke about the samurai instead, and be like, hey, what is like, I'm trying to remember exactly. How does non-binary samurai kill people? They
How?
slash them.
Okay.
Ah, nice.
That's actually good.
There you go. There you go. I filled
That's
your
the one.
needs there.
All right. Well, chat, thank you for joining us, everybody. Again, slightly different format than we normally do. Would love the feedback. We're going to raid our good friend and Otherworld member, Baldy. I actually sent my community there last night. If you have mentions turned on in my Discord, because we didn't stream last night, but I didn't point out why I sent everybody to Baldy. It's because he is doing the stream too. Which is very, very almost parody in my eyes, because he did the stream, which was meant to never ever end, and the fact that the stream 2 exists is kind of but
It's
anyway,
very funny to me.
his intention is that he wants to stream as long as physically possible. It's not really like a subathon where you have to sub to keep him live. He's just fucking going, so we're gonna give him some support. He's 30. Actually, I think he's more than 31 hours into it at this point, because I think he had to reset stream. But yeah,
Yep.
give some love to our bald friend. I'm trying to. I think I'm gonna try to talk him into playing some Death Stranding soon. He's launching RuneScape right now. But yeah,
Are you trying to convince someone out of RuneScape? That's crazy.
well, not necessarily. But anyway, I hope everyone has a wonderful night. Get some good sleep, drink some water, take care of yourselves. I'll be live tomorrow and the next day, so you'll see more of me this week. And then we're gonna have a weekend off before the subathon. So however long that lasts, get ready. Oh, let me tell you before we leave, I'm making it very cozy themed, because I know that I'll struggle with keeping up hype energy the whole time. So I'm like, perfect. I will theme it as a cozy slumber party / camping trip, so I can be here in my pajamas. I've got my Devi blanket. I'm gonna be giving away Devi blankets. I'm gonna be making hot cocoa, lots of hot cocoa, maybe some s'mores live on stream. We'll do some fun,
I
some
literally
fun
have
chill
a Debbie
stuff.
blanket.
Yeah, you do. I sent you one. All right. Anyway,
I might have hoodie instead, but I need to buy a blanket now.
well, you might be able to win one on the subathon. All right,
Unless
everybody,
Scooch
have a
is it.
wonderful night. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye.
Have a good one.
See ya.
Are they gone?
No. I'm
Oh.
refusing to hit the raid now buttons just in case you say something weird.
I would never say something weird.
How good is Sonic's fate?
Dude, let me tell you. The fungal growth in between those bad boys is unreal.
Oh, no.
Dude,
All right,
I don't give a
Alright.
fuck about corn